Chapter 1796. Half a day passed. The people from the supernatural organization arrived at Death Canyon before the sky turned dark. Along the way, they found many corpses. Some had clearly been dead for a long time. Some only had piles of white bones left. Who knew how long they had been dead? Moreover, it could be seen that many of the corpses had died in the same way. "This is Death Canyon," Dylan said. "Let's go in before it gets dark. It'll be more troublesome at night than during the day. The undead are active at night." Just then, Helly spoke up and stopped everyone in their tracks. "Don't go in," Helis said. "There's a powerful guy inside." "I'll go in." Dylan scoffed at Helis' words. Many people went in and out of Death Canyon. He hadn't heard of any powerful guy either. What was the point of this girl making such a fuss? However, judging from the others' expressions, they seemed to believe her. "Helis, is the guy inside very powerful?" "Yes, very powerful," Helis said. "You guys won't be able to handle him. Death magic is too strange. There are so many of us, so Gaia should be able to beat him. I'm 80% confident. Norma and him are 50-50, and so is Elite. The others probably can't beat him." "He's that powerful?" West asked in surprise. He didn't doubt Helis' guess. "You're going to fight him alone?" "Yes. Since he's a necromancer, of course I have to fight him personally. Plus, he's quite famous among necromancers." "Okay," West said. "But you have to tell us if there's trouble. Send us a signal." Actually, he had the same personality as Chun Zhao. He was very protective. He didn't have any intention of fighting one-on-one either. In fact, in the spiritual world, one-on-one fights were never recommended. Most of the time, spells could restrain each other to a certain extent. Unless they were powerful to a certain extent, it was obvious that they would be restrained in a small area. Therefore, one-on-one fights didn't mean who was stronger. Gaia went up and patted Helis' shoulder. "Don't make me go in and clean up the mess." Actually, everyone knew that Helis was a very competitive person. Their slogan in the association every day was to become someone who could fight alongside Chun Zhao. Even if this slogan seemed unrealistic, because they all knew how powerful Chun Zhao was. But Helios was never discouraged by this. Once Gaia said that Helith would definitely not send out a distress signal, but at the same time, she would also face this battle with absolute caution. He would not underestimate his opponent just because he was 80% confident. Yes, I know. Harold was also clear-minded and naturally knew that Gaia was trying to goad her. After that, he walked into the Death Valley alone. His figure gradually disappeared in the hazy rain. "We'll rest here for the night," West said. Dylan was sick and tired of this. These Americans. He really didn't understand what they were doing here. A mere Death Canyon was enough to make them feel as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Now he had to spend the night in this completely uncovered place. Once they left the tent, they were all wet. Thinking of this, Dylan felt irritated. However, his words carried little weight in the team. No one would listen to him. After setting up the tent, Derlin went inside. He didn't greet the others either. He took out his phone and sent a message. "Where are you?" But he was very careful. After sending the message, he deleted it. Very soon the other side replied. After receiving the message, Derlin was extremely happy, because the Sacred Fire sect wasn't far from them. "That Derlin has been secretly sending messages a few times recently," Klaus said to Gaia. Moore had planted a true vision seed in him. He already knows everything about him. "A group of people is approaching us," Gaia said. Gaia said, "Our people have been feeling down for the past few days. We need a big battle to lift everyone's spirits." Actually, a few people in the team already knew about this. West definitely knew, but he only wanted to let a few people know. They treated it as an accidental attack. This way, they could better lift everyone's spirits. Of course, the prerequisite was that no one was hurt. Derlin thought that he was being careful and cautious, but how could he hide it from some people? Just then, there was another loud rumble in the sky. This was the second thunder, near the withered tree demon's territory a few days ago. Then a huge body appeared, and this body was right above their heads. Gaia and Klaus were outside the tent, and naturally saw this huge body. It was the feet of the giant, and the giant was stepping towards their camp. "Oh no!" Gaia and Klaus both exclaimed, but the giant's foot did not land. It was like it was stepping through the air, leaving no footprints on the ground. As the thunder disappeared, the giant's figure also disappeared. That's not a giant, more like some kind of image, Gaia said doubtfully. If that's the case, then does the giant we've been searching for really exist? Klaus was also a little hesitant. The Scarlet Mission stated that the giant wreaked havoc in the forest, so it attracted the attention of the Scarlet Church. That means the giant exists. But if it's such a huge giant, the destruction it would cause would be huge. It might even destroy a small city. Even if it's not near a densely populated area, it would at least cause great damage. It's not as simple as attacking a few humans, Gaia said. You mean the giant we saw isn't the one attacking humans? I don't think so. If it was in a densely populated area, it wouldn't be able to hide it. If it was in the wilderness, I'm afraid there wouldn't be anyone left alive. If the giant stepped over, I'm afraid everyone would die. So either the quest itself is a lie, or the giant we saw wasn't the real giant. Just then, Mord came out of the tent and walked towards Gaia. Gaia, someone stepped on the seeds I left on the road. Someone is approaching us. How many are there? Gaia asked. About 40 to 50 people. I can't calculate the exact number, Mord said. The seeds he left were like a sensor device that could roughly determine the distance and number of people. But it couldn't be absolutely accurate. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1797. Pa! A crisp sound came from under Modric's feet. Modric stopped and bent down to pick up a seed on the ground. Is this a long-distance message? Modric recognized the seed. Looks like we've been discovered. It's okay, just a bunch of unruly people, Modric said nonchalantly. Sometimes power could decide everything. If it was in a society, he might be able to turn the situation around with his wits and wits. But this was a forest. All wits and wits would be crushed by absolute power. Magri Modric had enough confidence in the Sacred Flame sect. This group of people was 80% of the Sacred Flame Order's Norwegian branch's combat power. He had brought almost all of the Norwegian division's combat power. Those who didn't come only made up 20% of the combat power. Most of them were peripheral members, or even ordinary people. Mainly, he wanted to try and see if he could find the legendary giants. If they accidentally completed the Scarlet Mission, then even if they were members of the Sacred Flame sect, they could still go to the Scarlet Church to receive the reward. Magri Modric still had some ideas and ambitions. Of course, the first task was to get rid of the Americans. It was said that the Americans were quite rich. They could pay $200,000 for a guide. That was to say, if he could take them all down, then millions or even tens of millions of dollars would not be a problem. For an organization like the Sacred Flame sect, that had been attacked and suppressed by the government and others, money had always been a problem that they had to worry about. Of course, extortion and blackmail were not impossible. The key problem was the trouble that would follow. Once the bottom line was crossed, then they would be the enemy of the world. For example, Riblik. He was in a situation where he was the enemy of the world. The Sacred Flame sect was arrogant but not crazy. Kidnapping ordinary people was meaningless. Kidnapping rich people would have a huge impact. Once the government found out, then the government would retaliate with unparalleled ferocity. Although individuals in the spiritual world were stronger than ordinary people, but the government was still the government. In this era, the power of the government was above everything. So for the Sacred Flame sect, the Americans were the god of fortune who gave them money. Most importantly, there would be no follow-up trouble. So what if there was follow-up trouble? Could the power or organization behind them take revenge on the Sacred Flame sect? Not long after, the Sacred Flame sect's team appeared at the periphery of Death Canyon. In the heavy rain, they could see a few figures in front of them. Why weren't they prepared? Didn't you say there were more than 30 people? Could it be an ambush nearby? Lev asked. Ambush? Magri Modric sneered. This was not a real battlefield. In such a complicated environment, and with the limited number of people, it was impossible for them to survive. The so-called ambush was meaningless. Lev, teach them a lesson, Magri Modric said. Lev took 2 steps forward, not caring if he was exposed to the Americans. Raising his arms high, Anayanong chanted an incantation. At this moment, the raindrops in the sky suddenly turned into sharp icicles. Hua hua hua. Suddenly, tens of thousands of icicles fell from the sky. Then, the few people outside the tent covered their heads and scurried away. Then the campsite instantly exploded. One by one, they came out of their tents with their heads bleeding. Wow, what's going on? What happened? The icicles were not fatal, but if they hit the head, they would definitely pierce through the skin. Dylan ran out too. When he saw the Sacred Flame sect, he could not help but be happy. When he looked at the battered and exhausted Americans, he felt even more carefree. A few days ago, they had been showing off in front of him. Now it was time to see how they would die. Gaia, Mord, West, Klaus, and the others did not warn him immediately. They covered their heads and hid. Gaia, what happened? Who attacked us? Did those bastards attack us? Bastards, I'm going to kill them. Jalanash had a fiery temper. She had been holding it in for a few days and had nowhere to vent. Now she was being attacked for no reason. Of all things, the icicle had scratched her cheek. For a woman, appearance was as important as life, especially a woman with a bad temper. For a moment, the campsite was in chaos. All of them were cursing the attackers. By then, the people from the Sacred Flame sect had spread out and surrounded the people from the supernatural organization. You've been surrounded. Surrender now. Otherwise, we won't go easy on you. Magri Modric shouted proudly. Suddenly, a fireball appeared above the campsite. It was a huge fireball with a diameter of more than 1 meter. Go to hell. Jalanash threw a super explosive bomb in Magri Modric's direction. There was a hint of surprise in Magri Modric's eyes. What a powerful elementalist. Magri Modric himself was an elemental sorcerer and specialized in fire magic. Dylan was shocked too. Jalanash was actually so powerful. He was actually able to release such a powerful fire-type magic. Magri Modric also raised one hand, and a super explosive bomb appeared above his head. Boom! The two super explosive bombs collided with each other, causing an earth-shattering explosion. Magri Modric looked at Jalanash, who had released the super explosive bomb. Then he looked at Jalanash's heaving chest. His lips curled. It seemed that releasing such a super explosive bomb was too strenuous for this girl. Jalanash's chest was indeed heaving, but it wasn't because she was tired. It was because of anger. Seems like you won't give up until you see the coffin. Magri Modric's gaze was indifferent. He raised his right hand again. An even bigger fireball with even more terrifying power formed. This wasn't an explosive bomb anymore. It was called a small sun. The rain couldn't get close to the small sun. The entire entrance to Death Valley was completely illuminated by the small sun. Now tell me, do you surrender? Dylan immediately shouted. Magri Modric, it's me. I'm Dylan. He didn't want to be affected by these Americans. So, he immediately revealed his identity and joined the Sacred Flame sect's side. Then he could enjoy the rights of a victor. Jalanash wasn't shocked when she saw Magri Modric's magic. She was only happy. I like this magic. I want it, Jalanash said like a bandit. Chapter 1798. Klaus Nami. Come behind me, Risa said. Risa didn't need to worry about the others, but the lightning squad couldn't resist this large-scale magic. Klaus and the others were ordinary people. They couldn't resist this kind of attack. The power of the little sun in front of them was probably equivalent to a tomahawk missile. Mr. Magri Modric, I think they seem to be looking down on you, Doring said. Doring said, when they looked at you, they did not show any respect or fear. You are a tyrant. Magri Modric glanced at Doring, and then at the Americans. It seemed like, as Doring said, they were not afraid. Magri Modric didn't like this kind of enemy. He liked to see his enemies terrified and at a loss. Magri Modric's right arm, which was raised in the air, moved forward. The little sun shot towards the center of the camp. Boom! The huge flames seemed to be able to destroy everything. But the fire and impact seemed to be extinguished faster than expected. Maybe it was because of the rain. But Magri Modric believed that the power of the little sun was enough to kill half of them. The other half would also lose the power to resist. But when the fire gradually disappeared, the group of Americans still stood in the same place. They didn't seem to be hurt. The figures in the camp were messy. Tall, short men, women, all stood there unevenly. But in this chaos, there was an indescribable uniformity. Risa's petite body seemed to be panting, and her face was a bit irritable. She had absorbed too much heat. She needed to find a place to pour it out. Or a person. Just then, a big hand rested on Risa's shoulder. Risa, do you need to share some? Gaia asked. No, I like this kind of full load. I can still hold more, Risa said calmly. Magri Modric was a bit surprised. Why didn't they die? There wasn't even anyone injured. Could it be that one of them had some kind of magic that could restrain his little son? Jalanash walked out of the camp alone and walked towards Magri Modric. Sir, I think we can talk, Jalanash said, staring at Magri Modric. Have you chosen to surrender? Magri Modric was still arrogant as he looked down at Jalanash. No, give me this spell and I'll let you live, okay? Jalanash looked at Modric sincerely. Haha, little girl, do you know my name? I'm from the Holy Flame sect. I'm a tyrant. Magri Modric said. Do you know what I'm best at? Or do you think that by blocking one of my attacks, you will have the ability to fight against me? Tyrant. Touching her chin, Jalanash turned to West. Mr. West, will the chairman agree if I call myself tyrant? If you're called tyrant, then I'll be called queen. Lisa immediately joined the discussion. You can only call me princess, Moore said. No, I don't want to share a name with a bear, Risa said. Magri Modric's face darkened. These Yanks didn't seem to care about him at all. They didn't even care about the Holy Flame sect. This wasn't good. Damn Yanks, you'll pay for your ignorance, Magri Modric yelled. No one liked to be looked down upon or even ignored. Plus, Magri Modric was a very hot-tempered person. Jalanash looked at Magri Modric. Seems like you don't agree. But it doesn't matter. I'll make you speak anyway. Saying this, Jalanash pointed at Magri Modric and made a shooting motion. Bayou! A red light shot out from Jalanash's finger. Magri Modric immediately cast a magic shield on himself, but the red light instantly shattered the shield and pierced through Magri Modric's shoulder. Everyone was shocked. Magri Modric was injured. He was actually injured. Death Ray. Magri Modric was also proficient in fire magic. Of course, he knew this was Death Ray. It had extremely powerful penetrating power. Dellen's expression changed slightly. It seemed like these Yanks were stronger than he'd imagined. At least Jalanash's strength surprised Dellen. After all, the person beside him was the tyrant Magri Modric. Not everyone could hurt him. Smiling, Jalanash looked at Magri Modric. Magri Modric was even more furious. Attack at will. Instantly, more than 50 Holy Flame sect disciples attacked the members of the supernatural organization. Just then, vines suddenly drilled out of the ground. These vines came very suddenly and instantly grabbed 7 or 8 Holy Flame sect disciples. The few disciples screamed in agony. The vines wrapped tighter and tighter around them, almost crushing their bones. Mord looked at West. Mr. West, can I kill them? Of course, as you wish. West stood where he was and nodded slightly. Dellen was even more shocked. This young man called Morid was actually such a powerful nature plant spiritualist. At the same time, Lisa also attacked. She started to absorb heat and poured it on the Holy Flame sect disciples. Lisa slapped more than 10 times in the air, each with a powerful and high-temperature impact. The disciples who couldn't cast a magic shield in time were instantly torn to pieces. Even if they had a magic shield, it didn't mean they could withstand the impact. They just didn't end up as pitifully as their companions. On the other hand, Getkira and Dongya Tianchi loved this kind of chaotic battle the most. Most importantly, they could kill people. Dongya Tianchi, in particular, turned into a samurai the moment he unsheathed his katana. The weapon he was holding was Demon Blade Whiteface Ghost. When the blade was unsheathed, demonic aura filled the air. Dongya Tianchi turned into a wild and cruel monster. There was only slash in his mind. One slash at a time. Beside him, Genkira reminded him. Whiteface Ghost, behave yourself. Otherwise, our boss will throw you into the lava. Instantly, Dongya Tianchi sobered up. Whiteface Ghost really wanted to kill Genkira too, but he didn't want to face Qin Zhao's anger. His current state didn't give him absolute freedom, but it was at least acceptable. Damn, these people are hard to deal with. Retreat, retreat! Magri Modric yelled. Suddenly, from the direction of Death Valley, a cloud darker than the night shrouded the area. 9 Heavens, Divine Emperor. Chapter 1799. Helis strolled out, but she was still holding a head in her hand. Seeing Helis come out of the Death Valley, everyone made way for her. Helis, in principle, we don't object to you killing people, West said. But we can't tolerate the birth of a pervert. Throw this head away, and we'll still be on the same side. I'm not a pervert. Helis threw the head on the ground helplessly. I just want what's in his head. Fine. Next time you carry a head, can you find something to carry it with? I don't have anything to carry, Helis said. My clothes are expensive. I don't want to use them to carry this disgusting head. Go find something to carry it with you. Oh, how long will it take to extract the thing from this head? Can you do it in Norway? Or do you need to bring it back? It'll take a long time. Fine. Looks like I need to find a way to send this head back home. Helis looked at the scene. Did I miss something? Magri Modric saw the head. He recognized Riblik. Back then, he was the one who had tried his best to pull Riblik into the Holy Flame sect. Of course, in the end, he had personally handed Riblik over to the organization. So he remembered it clearly, even though many years had passed. That crazy, perverted, terrifying madman filled with evil. He was an undefeatable madman. Modric remembered it very, very clearly. Riblik. But today they had reunited, and in such a way. Riblik only had a head left. The face of the head was also filled with shock and astonishment. How could this be? Who was that black-clothed girl? How could she have killed Malik? How could a girl kill that terrifying madman? Helis, don't fight with me, Jalanash said. I want the man called Tyrant alive. West, get ready too. We need to send him back to the headquarters too. Which one is Tyrant? Helis asked curiously. Which one? Isn't he powerful? He has to be at least 1/10 as powerful as the president to have that name. That's him. Jalanash pointed at Magri Modric. But this nickname belongs to me now. He has a spell that I like. Magri Modric suddenly felt a chill. He met Hallis's gaze. He noticed that Hallis was a little interested in him. After all, this girl had just killed Ribrik. Modric didn't think he could compete with Ribrik. He also didn't think that he could fight against the person who killed Ribrik. This was a true level suppression. All right, I won't do it. Harrow shrugged. In fact, her magic power had not yet recovered. She had used the abyssal demon in the battle with Ribrik. It couldn't be said that he didn't have any fighting strength now. However, he was definitely not at his peak condition. The battle in the Death Canyon just now had satisfied her. Therefore, for the time being, she did not want to make a move. Moreover, these enemies were too weak compared to Ribrik. A few of their main forces did not make a move. 2/3 of the work had been done. Now only 1/3 of the people were left. No one in the Sacred Flame sect, including Magri Modric, had expected this. These Americans were so strong. Run! Someone shouted. However, they could not escape from the man-eating beast. White-faced ghosts liked this kind of chasing fish and slashing game the most. Except for Gatella, who needed to supervise White-faced Ghost, everyone else stayed where they were. Jalanash looked at Magri Modric with a smile on her face. See, give me that spell, and I'll let you go. Magri Modric's face was pale. But Dellen's face was even paler. Because he suddenly realized the mistake he had made. He had underestimated these Americans. These Americans had not really made a move along the way. But this did not mean they were not strong. Most importantly, he was a traitor. Traitors were more hated than enemies. For example, in Germany after World War II, ordinary soldiers would not be court-martialed. Because they were just manipulated pawns. Only those generals and leaders were court-martialed. And those traitors. Magri Modric's eyes flashed. He was looking for a chance to break out. The only thing he was glad about was that he was a fire elemental. He had not risked his life alone, and had not gone deep into the enemy's line of defense. He had been standing on the periphery, so he was considering if he should turn and run now. Would he have the chance? Do you want to run? Jalanash was too experienced in battle. Looking at Magri Modric's eyes, Jalanash guessed his intentions. Magri Modric was secretly furious. Damn this little girl. Why was her intuition so sharp? Guardian, let's surrender. Love was already desperate. Was this still the spiritualist from the Magic Desert? This was like a national football team, suddenly running to the Champions League, and then abusing a powerhouse team. Not winning, but losing 10 o'clock. This result was so absurd, so unacceptable. There are too few people, not enough to go around, Morad complained. In fact, he could handle most of the enemies alone. Magri Modric gritted his teeth and shouted, I demand a fair duel with you. If I win, I demand the corresponding rights. Everyone looked at Magri Modric. It was unknown whether they were surprised by Magri Modric's choice, or surprised by his courage. In fact, Magri Modric was just putting his all on the line. He didn't think he could escape. He wasn't good at speed. If he wanted to rely on his own 2 feet to escape the forest, and the strong people in front of him, that was completely impossible. That was why he came up with such a strange request. What if you lose? Jalanash asked. Then I accept being your captive. Fuck, you're a captive now, Jalanash scolded. She wasn't a lady. If she was a lady, she wouldn't have wanted to get the nickname Tyrant just because she thought it was imposing. If you lose, then hand over your magic, Jalanash said. How about that? Nothing much. Magri Modric knew very well that magic was his life-saving card. If he handed it over, he would completely become a lamb on the chopping board. Chapter 1800. Jalanash, Harris said. Kill him without him saying anything. Just leave his head intact. Modric was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. How could he forget about this woman? Since she could get the memory she wanted from Ribric's head, she could definitely get the same memory from his head too. That's right. Jalanash remembered. She looked at Modric with an even more unfriendly gaze. If that's the case, there's no need for this duel. Just kill him. Wait. I agree. If I lose, I'll give you the spell you want. What a joke. This was his last trump card, not a talisman to kill him. If his trump card became a talisman to kill him, what was the point? Even if he didn't want to use the spell, it wasn't as precious as his own life. All right, I'll reluctantly agree, Jalanash said. They can't interfere during our duel. Otherwise, you'll lose and you'll have to let me go. Okay. West didn't care. He knew what Modric was thinking like the back of his hand. In this duel, Magri Modric had the advantage from the start. Because Jalanash wouldn't kill him, she had to keep him alive to give the spell. But he could be heavy-handed. It would be best if he could force the others to attack. That way, he would win even if he didn't win. Then, the other party would have to keep their promise and let him go. Jalanash understood this too, but she didn't care either. Just like what Magri Modric himself believed in. In the face of absolute power, all schemes and plots were laughable and foolish farces. The old members of the supernatural organization had completely different thoughts in the past and present. Back then, Jalanash was still the #1 fighter in the organization. Back then, she didn't need to think about who she could defeat. She only needed to think about one thing. That was to make it impossible for the other people in the organization to surpass her. Before Chen Zhao came, she'd maintained it very well. After Chen Zhao came, she and the other people in the organization finally understood something. They didn't need to defeat 1 or 2 people, but a group of people. The Tower of Trials gave them this opportunity. When each of them entered the Tower of Trials alone, they could not even last for a moment. Up until now, each and every one of them had relied on their own strength to pass through the first level. And someone had also passed through the second level. What they were best at was not one-on-one but one-on-many. When a person could easily deal with multiple opponents at once, it would be extremely easy to deal with one-on-one. Moreover, when facing enemies, everyone instinctively used the number of monsters on the trial tower to calculate the enemy's strength. As for Magri Modric's strength, everyone already had an idea in their hearts. He wasn't weak. With Magri Modric's strength, as long as he was given a few chances, he would probably be able to pass the first level. According to the strength of the monsters on the second floor, it should be equivalent to the strength of 30 monsters. Everyone had a different evaluation in their hearts, but everyone's evaluation of Magri Modric wasn't too far off from each other. Jalanash had just passed level 2 not long ago, and was now struggling on level 3. The crowd made way for Magri Modric and Jalanash. Doring and Love wanted to run. However, Gaia placed her large hand on their shoulders. "Where are you going? There's going to be a big show here." With bitter expressions, the two were pulled to the edge of the arena by Gaia. Magri Modric glanced at the Americans around him. Then his gaze fell on Jalanash. "Are you ready? Can we start now?" Magri Modric asked. "Anytime," Jalanash replied. "Then let's start," West ordered. Magri Modric immediately wanted to throw out Little Sun again. However, just then, Jalanash's 10 fingers shot out 10 red rays at the same time. Magri Modric was dumbfounded. "Fight my ass, how could he fight like this?" Jalanash's death ray had pierced through Magri Modric's shoulder, but it didn't cause much damage to him. However, it didn't cause too much damage to him. It wasn't even a serious injury, let alone a fatal one. Of course, this was because Jalanash didn't plan on killing him. If Jalanash really wanted to kill him, she could just shoot at another position. He would either be seriously injured or crippled. How could he fight one-on-one? So, Magri Modric purposely cast 2 fire shields on himself. With the power of the death ray he had just experienced, he felt that 2 fire shields should be able to block Jalanash's killer death ray. However, Magri Modric didn't expect that. Jalanash's killer weapon wasn't the death ray, but the 10-finger volley. Magri Modric's 2 fire shields could block 1 death ray. But he wasn't naive enough to think that he could block Jalanash's volley at the same time. Jalanash's 10 fingers could probably turn him into a hornet's nest with just a sweep. "I admit defeat." Magri Modric was very decisive. Without any hesitation. If he could fight and had a chance, Magri Modric definitely wouldn't admit defeat so easily. But it was precisely because he didn't have a chance that he didn't want to lose both in person and spirit. Being able to shoot the death ray with 10 fingers at the same time. This was enough to show how strong Jalanash's magic was. In addition, it was extremely fast and had great destructive power. So Magri Modric didn't think he had a chance to fight back. If Jalanash wanted to kill him, he wouldn't even have a chance to fight back. Maybe the difference in power between them wasn't that big. But the magic they had decided the outcome of this duel. Magri Modric also had instantaneous magic. But it wasn't powerful enough to hurt Jalanash. And Jalanash's death ray wasn't just fast, it also had shocking penetrative power. He believed that Jalanash wouldn't really kill him, but if they really fought and Jalanash missed and hit a vital spot, it would be very fatal. Rather than admit defeat after being trampled on, it was better to save his last bit of face. "The magic is in my phone. I'll send it to you." Magri Modric was very trustworthy. To put it bluntly, he just hoped that Jalanash would leave him a way out for this reason. "Okay, leave the thing and you can go." Jalanash didn't want to make things difficult for him. After all, they didn't have a deep hatred, and she got what she needed. But this guy has to stay. Jalanash pointed at Delin. Chapter 1801. Delin was so scared that he peed his pants. Sure enough, they were going to settle the score. Delin raised his head and looked at Gaia, who had her hand on his shoulder. His legs had already turned to jelly. Of course, Modric wouldn't care about Delin. He wasn't one of his people. And from their tone, they didn't seem to have any intention of making things difficult for Leviticus. He had no obligation to stand up for Delin. Plus, he hated Delin, who'd dragged him into the pit. Were these Americans really weaklings? Why the fuck did you find a bunch of weaklings like this in Europe? Forget about extortion, he had to save his life first. There was no need to talk about revenge, or anything like that. He'd brought 80% of the Holy Fire Sect's combat power from the Norway branch. And they'd all died here. How could he talk about revenge now? He didn't have the ability to. "Can you tell me who you are? Why? Do you want revenge?" West smiled at Magri Modric. Modric shook his head and said calmly, "I don't dare, but I want to get to know you. North America, a supernatural organization. I hope we'll have a chance to work together in the future," Modric said indifferently. Modric wasn't saying it out of anger. He really had this thought. Of course, it was more likely that they wouldn't have any contact. There were so many organizations in the world. The Holy Fire Sect was only popular in Europe. unless the supernatural organization's tentacles extended to Europe, and they had a huge conflict. Otherwise, they wouldn't have any contact with each other. Modric had never thought of sending people to North America to seek revenge from the supernatural organization. What a joke. The supernatural organization had already shown such great power. If he wanted revenge, what price would he have to pay? And if he couldn't take revenge and angered them, then the supernatural organization might come to him. Modric couldn't say that he didn't hate them, but he was more concerned about whether it was worth it or not, and whether it was possible. The answer was obvious. While there was hatred between them, Modric didn't want to make enemies. You're so powerful. Why haven't I heard of you in North America? Modric could clearly feel that there were still a few people in their team who hadn't made a move yet. Those people were the strongest in their team. When we feel the need, our names will be heard all over the world, Wes said confidently. Then, will you participate in the Battle of Holy Glory? What Battle of Holy Glory? Wes was stunned. Everyone else, including Dylan and Lev, revealed looks of astonishment. You don't know? That's impossible. You guys are definitely qualified. We really don't know. Can you tell us about the Battle of Holy Glory? This year's Battle of the Holy Glory will be held in Istanbul. Istanbul used to be known by several names, such as Constantinople. It was once the capital of New Rome, and later the capital of the Ottoman Empire. Of course, Istanbul was well documented in history textbooks. There were even more that were not recorded in history textbooks. For example, his status in the spiritual world. The Battle of the Holy Glorious Ones is actually a martial arts competition jointly organized by the 3 religions and 9 nations to select the Holy Glorious Ones for the next 10 years. 3 religions and 9 nations? Taoism, Buddhism, JD religion. The 9 nations are Japan, Wuxia, Norway, England, Austria, Vatican City, Turkey, India, and Egypt. There are 10 Holy Glorious Ones each year. The 3 religions and 9 nations will give out spots to individuals or organizations. Then they'll fight. The 10 winners will receive the glory of the Holy Glorious Ones. Magri Modric looked at everyone. This Battle of the Holy Glorious Ones can be said to be a secret. In fact, many organizations and individual spiritualists know about this event. Of course, it's called a secret because the majority of those who know about the Battle of the Holy Glorious Ones are the top organizations and forces, or the top lone wolves. Moreover, almost every time, only those organizations and individuals participate. Those organizations and individuals below the top have no way of knowing about this. Modric had thought that the supernatural organization would know about this. After all, they were so powerful. There was no reason they wouldn't know. But now it seemed that they were a newly rising organization. It was normal that they didn't know. Plus, the 3 religions and 9 nations hadn't started giving out spots yet. Are there any benefits to getting the Holy Glorious Ones? Glory. Isn't that enough? The supernatural organization will become famous in the spiritual world because of this, Modric said. Glory? That's all. Wes lost interest at once. Hey Qinzhao, Zhang Tianyi said. There's an event in Istanbul next January. Does your supernatural organization want to participate? What event? Do I get paid? Chen Zhao was lying in the sun. The spiritual world's event is actually a martial arts competition. Are you sure you want me to participate? I'm not asking you to participate. It's your supernatural organization. I remember that you have many strong subordinates. Zhang Tianyi didn't want someone who broke the balance to participate in that event. If Chen Zhao participated, it would only become a farce. They're all busy, Chen Zhao said. I'm busy too. Why don't you go and play? I'll pay for the flight and accommodation. Do I need your money? Chen Zhao said straightforwardly. Can't you give me some face? This is also a chance for the supernatural organization to become famous. I don't need it. The supernatural organization doesn't need it either. Chen Zhao was telling the truth. The supernatural organization wasn't famous now, but even so, they were still taken care of by the anti-terrorism security department. If he made a name for himself, then trouble would come one after another. If they were celebrities, the more famous, the better. Fame meant money, but in the spiritual world, Fame often meant all kinds of trouble. For example, was Zhang Tianyi famous enough in the spiritual world? Right now, he was basically the top person in the world, the Tao master, the uncrowned king, and so on. But when some countries or regions encountered trouble, they would think of him first. For example, why didn't the Japanese look for him for the Rock of Death incident? Why did they look for Zhang Tianyi instead? Was he weaker than Zhang Tianyi? Of course, it was because Zhang Tianyi was famous while he was unknown. Chen Zhao didn't think that it would be good to stand out. Making a fortune in silence was Chen Zhao's principle of life. Chapter 1802. Are you really not going to consider it? That activity is pretty interesting. Do you have any tickets? Leave 2 for me. If it's for participation, then forget it. Fuck off. I don't have any tickets. Just be a circus. Fine. Chen Zhao pursed his lips. I'm done. Hanging up, Chen Zhao raised his voice. Portia, give me a few cans of beer. Portia's face darkened. She walked up to Chen Zhao. Boss, I'm not your maid. Oh, you've already worked for me for a month. I haven't given you your salary yet, right? Portia felt that Chen Zhao was too much of a bully. Gritting her teeth, she stared at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao glanced at Portia. Do you have any objections? No. Do you have any other orders, boss? That's good. Go on, you're blocking my sunlight. Chen Zhao waved his hand. Portia really wanted to tear Chen Zhao into pieces. Just then the butler said, Master, Ms. Demon is calling you. Give me my phone. Portia obediently handed the phone to Chen Zhao. Boss, when are you going to give me my salary? Go away. Don't disturb me. After chasing Portia away, Chen Zhao called Demon's number back. Demon, what's up? Nawat Singh received news that her tribe seems to have been attacked. She's trying to get out of the hospital at all costs. Can you help protect her? Sure. Chen Zhao agreed decisively. I'm going to the hospital. Wait for me. After hanging up, Chen Zhao said to Portia, Portia, I'm going out for a while. Help me take care of Jerlin and Larissa. Okay, boss. My salary. However, Chen Zhao didn't listen to Portia at all. He had already left. Chen Zhao rushed to the hospital. Demon was already helping Nawat Singh get out of the hospital. Nawat Singh's injuries were very serious. She couldn't even stand up. She had to sit in a wheelchair, which was why Demon had called Chen Zhao and asked him to protect her. Nawat Singh looked haggard, although his life was not in danger. But her body was too weak. Chen, you're here. Dalmore had finished the discharge procedures. Seeing Chen Zhao, she immediately went over to greet him. Chen Zhao nodded and turned to look at Navats. Navats, are you okay? Although Navats was in a bad mood, she wouldn't vent her anger. Moreover, Chen Zhao was here to help her. It's all right, but I feel weak, Navats said. I can't do anything about that, Chen Zhao said. You've used too much energy. You can only recover slowly. Navats also understood her current state and nodded slightly. She used Chen Zhao's extraordinary power. She knew very well the price she had to pay for using that power. Normally, it wouldn't be surprising even if he had to pay with his life. Not to mention that he was only lying in bed for half a month. Do your people live in downtown Los Angeles? Not shook her head. There are large settlements in the city, but my family's settlement is rather remote. It's in the San Antonio Mountain Forest. Okay, you lead the way. San Antonio Mountain was connected to the LA National Park. It was even larger than downtown Los Angeles, reaching 2,000 square kilometers. It was also very far. The car drove for 2 hours before reaching the entrance of San Antonio Mountain. After that, they couldn't use the car anymore. Navats, how far is it? About 100 kilometers, Nawat Singh said. That far? Chen Zhao was surprised. How do your people go back to their families? Helicopter, Nawat Singh replied. Then I'll fly you in, Chen Zhao said. This was a mountain area. There were no people nearby. Plus, as long as they didn't fly too fast, no radar in space could find Chen Zhao. Dalmore, stay on my back. Chen Zhao carried Dalmore on his back and lifted Navat's wheelchair at the same time. Then he soared into the air. Neither Dalmore nor Nawat Singh had ever enjoyed flying like this. Chen Zhao flew a bit too fast. The air whizzed and slapped their faces. Of course, with Chen Zhao's intentional protection, they didn't feel too uncomfortable. Plus, Chen Zhao wasn't very fast either. Dalemore was very envious. After all, he could fly in the sky without any aircraft. She probably didn't even dare to think about it. Chen, how strong do I have to be to fly like you? Don't think about it, Navot said. That's almost impossible. But the truth is right in front of us. Chen can do it. How strong? Chen Zhao said. So I can't give you a standard answer. Actually, it wasn't that Chen Zhao couldn't give this number at all. According to the supernatural organization's Adu's mana value, he would need about 100,000 Adu's mana value. At least, Chen Zhao had his own small world at this stage. At that time, Chen Zhao already had the ability to fly. However, he could only fly freely after compressing his mana into immortal power. But after that, Chen Zhao could no longer calculate the magic value of the money with the equipment in the association. Chen Zhao didn't know what his current immortal power would be if it was converted into mana. Of course, one didn't have to have 100,000 mana to have the ability to fly. For example, Gaia, Norma, and Jalanash all had between 500 and 2,000 mana. However, they could all fly because of their special characteristics. Gaia and Norma could purely because of their bloodline. Norma could walk in the air after turning into a nightmare, while Gaia could turn into a fire dragon and soar into the sky. Jalanash, on the other hand, had wind elemental magic. However, her flying ability was the weakest. In the distance, Chen Zhao saw a cluster of buildings in the dense forest more than 10 kilometers away. The building wasn't big. There was a building a few stories tall, surrounded by some single houses. There shouldn't be more than 30 families living here. It wasn't as large as Chen Zhao had thought. However, Chen Zhao realized that he couldn't see anyone. He'd thought it was because he was too far away, but when he got closer, even Jalanash and Navots could see him. Chen Zhao didn't see anyone. Chapter 1803. Chen Zhao placed Daily Moore and Navots on the ground. There wasn't a single person, or rather, not a single living person. There wasn't a single living person in the entire Singh family's residential area. The Singh family's residential area was very small. It was less than 20 hectares in size. It was surrounded by dense forests. In the center was an 8-story building. There were some houses around it, but there were only about 30 households. Chen Zhao pushed Navot's wheelchair. Which way? Chen Zhao asked. Where are they? Where are they? How come there's no one? Navots was also terrified. The people living here were all her family. There weren't many of them, only about 30 households, and less than 100 people. But every time she came back, she would see them. It was impossible not to see a single person. There's the smell of blood in the building, Chen Zhao said. Let's go in and take a look. Navot's body trembled. She realized that things weren't good. Chen Zhao patted Navot's singer's shoulder and pushed her inside. After entering the building, there were bloodstains on the ground. Navot's expression worsened. She wanted to speak a few times, wanting to go somewhere else first. But just as the words were about to leave his mouth, he swallowed them back. She was afraid but also wanted to escape. Beside her, Daily Moore's expression was also bad. Just then there was a knocking sound from the ground. The sound came from afar, but no one was coming. The sound seems to be coming from underground, Chen Zhao said. Is there a secret passage here? I don't know. Navots shook her head. She indeed didn't know there was a secret passage here. Chen Zhao was also surprised. He didn't know what the ground was made of. His little world couldn't even sense the ground. Knock, knock. The sound traveled to the tiles in front. Then there were continuous knocking sounds. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking sounds were disjointed and muffled. This time, it was more hurried and crisp. It seemed like someone was looking for a weak spot, and then pounding on the tiles. Navots and Daily Moore were surprised, but they weren't afraid. Chen Zhao was here. There was nothing to be afraid of. Navots had experienced Chen Zhao's power before. She turned around and asked, What's down there? I don't know. I can't sense it. Chen Zhao thought for a moment and didn't say anything else. Did you find out soon after you lifted the floor tiles? Chen Zhao went up and crushed the floor tiles. Wow! A child's cry of surprise came from below. Chen Zhao looked down and saw a few kids. When the kids saw Chen Zhao, they immediately turned around and ran back into the tunnel. It's Xianli, She recognized one of the voices. Exainli. I think it's Exainli. The children hiding in the underground tunnel heard Navat Singh's voice. One of the girls, who was about 15 or 16 years old, carefully poked her head out. Sister Navats. Shinli Singh was surprised and overjoyed. She immediately came out of the tunnel. Come out, it's not the bad guy. It's Sister Knots. 7 or 8 children emerged from the tunnel. They were all younger than Exainli, ranging from 6 to 12 years old. Sister Knots, what's wrong? I'm fine. Why are you hiding down there? What happened? Mom and Dad gathered us here this morning, Shinli Singh said. Then they hid us down here. Navat's heart sank. This meant that her people probably knew about the attack. They'd also prepared beforehand and hid the young children? Shinli Singh turned to Chen Zhao and said angrily, Do you know that you crushed the floor tiles and hit my head? Yeah, I know, Chen Zhao said, nodding. If he'd known that there were kids down there, he probably wouldn't have used such a violent method. Of course, he'd already done that. Chen Zhao wouldn't deny it. He wasn't hurt anyway. Do you think I won't curse you? Chen Zhao turned to look at Navats. Can I hit her? Shinli, don't be rude to Chen. He's my helper. Him. How strong is he? Navats was speechless. No matter how strong he is, he's definitely stronger than you. Better than me, Nawat Singh said. Shouldn't we consider looking for your people? Chen Zhao reminded. Nawat Singh's mood had just calmed down when she saw the children of her clan. Now she became serious again and nodded. Sister Navats, I'll push you. The other children followed around. Chen Zhao walked in front. These children seem to be awakened bloodlines or witches, Dailymore said. That's not strange. This should be a special residential area that only accepts spiritualists, Chen Zhao said. Spells that aren't convenient to use in the outside world can be used here without any restrictions. Ding! The elevator came down and the group entered. Which floor? Chen Zhao asked. 8th floor, Shinli Singh answered first. The elevator reached the 8th floor. As soon as they got out, all the children screamed. Bodies. Dozens of bodies. Most of the corpses were the children's relatives. Clearly there'd been a massacre here. Chen Zhao wasn't used to this. They were spiritualists, but they were actually commoners. Their bodies were piled together. There was a blood-smeared magic array in the middle. Navats covered her mouth. She couldn't hold back her tears anymore. Dalamore's face was also filled with shock. It was also her first time seeing such a bloody scene. Shinli Singh had already charged forward. She dragged a corpse from the pile of corpses and cried out, Daddy. But just then, large amounts of blood suddenly gushed out of the pile. The blood flowed into the magic array in an arc. A blood-colored demon popped its head out of the array. Chen Zhao went up and stepped on the demon's head before it could completely show itself. Go back. Ah, do you know who I am? Your head didn't shatter. Chen Zhao didn't care who it was. He attached himself and punched the demon's head. Bang! The demon's head was smashed. But the magic array didn't stop. It still summoned the headless demon. This wasn't the end. A second demon popped out, then a third, a fourth. More and more demons were summoned. Chapter 1804. More than a dozen blood demons were displayed before him. When the children saw these blood-colored demons, they were so scared that their faces turned pale. Dailymore hugged 2 children who were already scared silly. The 2 buried their heads in Dailymore's chest, not daring to look at the terrifying demons. Chen Zhao tilted his head and looked at the demons. Knots, do you know what they are? They're immortal Balak. Balak means demon in our language. They have indestructible bodies. Knots looked at the headless corpse. Of course, indestructible doesn't work on you. The Romani language was a small language. In the Romani language, immortal meant indestructible bodies, souls that couldn't be purified, and power that couldn't be used up. In the Singh family, immortal Balak was very widespread. Especially the relatives in the settlement, they knew the immortal Balak even better. In the family, immortal Balak was their greatest enemy. Their ancestors had once fought with immortal Balak and successfully killed him after a fierce battle. Chen Zhao twisted off the head of a blood-colored demon. Their joints aren't as hard as their heads, Chen Zhao said. Not Singh and Delamore rolled their eyes a little. Is there a difference to you? On the other hand, Exionly Singus and the other kids were shocked. As inner disciples, they obviously knew about immortal Balak. However, these terrifying Balaks were like bugs. Chen Zhao broke their necks one by one, or their heads were smashed. It seemed that the legendary immortal Balak wasn't that scary. However, Chen Zhao had to admit that their bodies were indeed very hard. At least, if Chen Zhao didn't use his heavy and high-speed punches, these blood demons could often stand up unharmed. To the weak, their bodies were indeed indestructible. Even armor-piercing bullets from modern weapons probably couldn't penetrate their bodies. Not sighed. In her eyes, these powerful blood demons were so weak. Before Chen Zhao, they couldn't even withstand a single blow. She also knew that Chen Zhao hadn't used his true power. But even so, the power he displayed was already on the level of a crushing suppression. A few minutes later, Chen Zhao killed the last immortal Balak. Chen Zhao didn't use his full power, not even in his normal state. Otherwise, he would have killed them all. Of course, this included the 8-story building. But when Chen Zhao killed the last undying barrack, all the corpses started fusing together. In the end, they merged into a supersized immortal Balak. Human, you didn't expect me to revive again, did you? The blood-red demon looked at Chen Zhao proudly. Yes, I didn't expect that. Chen Zhao nodded. How are you feeling right now? Fear? Despair? Or regret? It's great to be able to kill you again. Chen Zhao didn't care about the rules and attacked directly. He went up and pressed the gigantic blood-colored demon to the ground. The floor collapsed in an instant, falling to the next floor. The lower floor collapsed again, layer by layer, and finally fell to the ground. The ground cracked like a spider web. Everyone came to the hole and looked down. They saw that Chen Zhao was holding the head of the super-large immortal barrack. How did it end so quickly? Everyone couldn't believe it. They'd thought that it would be a huge battle. Especially Nawat Singh. She thought that Chen Zhao would have to use his true power. She could vaguely feel that the super-large immortal barrack's power was already the same as when she'd borrowed Chen Zhao's power. In the end, Chen Zhao surprised her again. It didn't take much effort to finish off this super-large immortal Balak. Everyone came to the bottom floor. Xinli Shingles looked at Chen Zhao in shock. When they first met, she didn't think that Chen Zhao was strong at all. But now, she finally saw Chen Zhao's power. It was even terrifyingly strong. Mr. Chen, help me get revenge. I can pay anything, including myself. Xinli Shingles looked at Chen Zhao, her eyes filled with seriousness and sincerity. If you want to sell yourself to me, you better contact my lawyer and ask if she has a way to bypass the underage protection law. I'm serious. I'm serious too. Chen Zhao shrugged. Knots, you have to pay attention to the education of your children. If they only practice magic and don't learn culture, they won't be able to find a job in society. Chen, apart from these children, the others are all dead. Knots' expression was extremely dark. Do you know who did it? Warren, the one who attacked me. He's from the Akuk family. Do you have a grudge against him? All the Roma have a grudge against the Akuk family. Knots was angry, but Chen Zhao didn't hear much hatred in her tone. Why? The Akuk family was once the leader of the Roma. Their family once tried to form a country. Isn't that a good thing? You Roma people have never had a real country, and have always lived as nomads. This has also caused you Roma people to bear a lot of stigma. If you build a country, you will have more living space and the right to speak. The Akuk family wants to use the lives of all the Roma in exchange for a chance for their family to build a country. Do you think such a country has anything to do with the Roma? At that time, apart from the Akuk family, everyone else with Roma blood will die. And then, did the Akuk family fail? Of course. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any Roma in the world. So is Warren going to do the same thing again? No, it's impossible for him to succeed. In the past, the Cook family was the leader of the Roma. So the Cook family could sacrifice the entire Roma as a leader. But now, not only are they not the leader of the Roma, but they are also the enemy of the Roma, so they can no longer use this magic to threaten us. So what does the Akuk family want to do? Take revenge on all the Roma? I don't know what they want, but I think they're definitely plotting something. I don't want to know about the plot. Just tell me where the Akuk family lives and where Warren is. Chapter 1805. Most of the time, conspiracies didn't matter. Chen Zhao wasn't a cop. Nawats and the kids only wanted revenge. Therefore, what they pursued was never the truth. The truth only satisfied curiosity. Revenge, on the other hand, brought pleasure. Unfortunately, Nawats didn't know where the Cook family was either. She didn't even know if it was in North America. What do you plan to do with these kids? Chen Zhao asked. I'll take care of them. I'll help too, Dailymore said. There were so many kids and a disabled person. Chen Zhao couldn't fly them out directly. Unless, he tied them all up. Chen Zhao held the end of the rope. But now the kids were panicking and lost. They were very fragile, and couldn't take any stimulation. Chen Zhao decided to just walk out. Not Singh asked Chen Zhao to burn down the entire Singh family's residential area, along with the corpses. In the flames, the kids cried heart-wrenchingly. The fire was like the anger in everyone's heart. Only Chen Zhao was calm. In fact, he was calm inside too. When he first saw the corpses, he was indeed angry. But maybe it was because he was an outsider. The dead and the kids had nothing to do with him. So, Chen Zhao realized that his anger seemed to calm down. Of course, it was mainly because Chen Zhao didn't have so many emotions. Chen Zhao didn't have the thought of seeking justice for them, or fighting to the death with the murderers. It wasn't that Chen Zhao didn't have a sense of justice, but it wasn't that strong. The path in the forest was very difficult. But Chen Zhao didn't have much of a choice. The kids could make it through a mountain road of almost 100 kilometers. But Chen Zhao couldn't. Even if they ran on the road, it would take them almost a day to run 100 kilometers. Plus, it was on the mountain road. With the kids' skills, it would take them 2 days even if there were no accidents. After a few hours, the sky was already dark. You guys rest here. I'll go hunting, Chen Zhao said. Dailymore, I'll leave this place to you. Dailymore nodded. Come back quickly. Dailymore looked at the forest and was a bit scared. Chen Zhao flew into the sky. Xian Li and the other kids watched Chen Zhao disappear into the night sky with shining eyes. They were all children who had been exposed to magic, although the duration of exposure was different. However, they all knew that spiritualists that could fly were very rare, and most of them were very powerful. Chen Zhao flew back to get the RV. Chen Zhao made a round trip at night. Chen Zhao only needed a few minutes to cover the 200 kilometers. If Chen Zhao used full speed, he would be even faster. However, if the speed was too fast, the body's heat source reaction would be too strong. It was very likely that the American air defense system would capture it, and then attack you with a tomahawk for no reason. Therefore, he only flew at a low speed. The round trip took more than 10 minutes. Chen, where's the prey? Dailymore looked at Chen Zhao's empty hands. Chen Zhao took out the RV. What do you think of this prey? You left just now to get the RV. Dailymore looked at him in surprise. What's the use of this trailer? Get in. I'll carry it and fly out. It's too troublesome to just walk like this. Both Dailymore and Nawat Singh looked at Chen Zhao in shock. You can do that? Why not? Let's all go. Soon, the 2 and the 8 kids experienced the feeling of a roller coaster. Chen Zhao supported himself under the RV. The flying speed wasn't fast, just like a normal car. It wasn't very high either. It was only a few dozen meters above the forest. This experience made the kids forget their pain for now. After an hour, they finally reached the forest. Chen, my house is a bit small. Can you let them stay at your house for the next 2 days? Dailymore asked. I'll borrow a big house from my mother tomorrow. I need to do some preparation, cleaning and decorating. Sure. Chen Zhao nodded and turned to the kids. You can stay at my place, but you can't use magic. Chen Zhao didn't use a heavy tone. However, the kids clearly still respected Chen Zhao. So they all nodded obediently. The kids in the RV didn't play or laugh. They were all very quiet. Returning to reality, they fell into pain again. Nawats, your parents aren't among them, right? Chen Zhao could only feel her anger, but not much sadness. My parents passed away long ago. Oh, sorry. It's okay. Nawats didn't take it to heart. What's the future like for these kids? I don't know. No one could answer this question. Send me and Dailymore home first. After sending them home, Chen Zhao drove home. Fei Lai, have the underlings make dinner. We'll have some special guests. Chen Zhao dialed Fei Lai's number. What guests? A bunch of kids who just lost their parents. Got it. When Chen Zhao drove into the villa, Fei Lai was already waiting for him in the garage. Fei Lai's heart was softer than Chen Zhao's, so she felt sorry for the kids after hearing what had happened. When Chen Zhao brought the kids out of the car, Fei Lai's heart ached even more. Among the kids, the youngest was only 5 or 6 years old. Fei Lai went up and carried the kids. Kids, have you eaten? Chen Zhao and Fei Lai led the kids into the dining room. These children were really hungry. Most of them only ate breakfast, and then nothing else. Fei Lai, on the other hand, was completely a waitress. She handed food to this child or poured drinks for that child. Chen Zhao took some food and walked out of the dining room. All the kids were wolfing down the food. Fei Lai suddenly noticed Xinli Singer's gaze. Miss Fei Lai, can you adopt us? Huh? Fei Lai was shocked. She didn't have this thought at all. More accurately, she hadn't thought about it at all. Why do you want me to adopt you? Fei Lai asked, stunned. Fei Lai suddenly realized that she didn't reject it. However, she had to explain it to Chen Zhao. She had to respect his suggestions and opinions. This wasn't a small matter. Adopting any child was a big deal, let alone a group of kids. Chapter 1806. Chen Zhao was also caught off guard. Adopt children? And ate at once. To be honest, Chen Zhao and Fei Lai were still kids. It was already hard for them to take care of little Jerlin and Larissa. Adopt 8 more children? Ignoring the troublesome legal procedures, Chen Zhao didn't have to worry about that. Their physical and mental health and futures were all things he had to consider. Fei Lai, do you want to adopt them? Chen Zhao asked. I don't know. When Fei Lai said this, it meant that she was tempted. Chen Zhao's head swelled. Adopt children, adopt 8 children. Fei Lai looked up at Chen Zhao. What about you? As long as you give me a definite answer. Yes or no? Fei Lai gritted her teeth. I want to, but I'm scared. Fine, leave the rest to me. Chen Zhao stood up and walked into the dining room. The children were still wolfing down their food. Only Xinli looked up at Chen Zhao. Xinli, why do you want Fei Lai and me to adopt you? Chen Zhao asked. Because you're powerful. You can help us get revenge. Also, I want to become stronger. Can you represent the other children? Also, where are your grandfathers and grandmothers? Chen Zhao looked at Xinli Sing. If they want to adopt you, I won't be able to legally do so. We don't have any blood relatives within 3 generations. Xinli looked at Chen Zhao calmly. So, as long as you're willing, no one will fight with you. They're like me. They don't have a choice. I need to discuss this with Knots. At the end of the day, they were Knots' relatives, not Chen Zhao's. Moreover, even if Chen Zhao adopted them, it wouldn't be for revenge. It wasn't for revenge, nor was it to train them into killers. Chen Zhao had never thought about adopting them either. Of course, he didn't reject it either. Chen Zhao was someone who didn't have great kindness or evil thoughts. Adopting a child wasn't just about providing food and shelter. He already had 2 little demons at home. Now there were 8 more. Chen Zhao felt his head hurt just thinking about it. Sister Knots can't teach me magic. I can't teach them either, Chen Zhao said. You must have a way to make people stronger, Xinli Sing said with certainty. Stay here for now. I'll think about your idea. Chen Zhao didn't say anything definite. This wasn't something he and Fei Lai could decide. What the child thought was one thing. What Navot's singer thought was another. Now it's me. Chen, what is it? Fei Lai wants to adopt these children. Chen Zhao went straight to the point. On the other end of the line, Navot Singh was silent for a moment. Chen Zhao did not speak either. He waited for Navot's reply. What about the children? Children have this tendency too. Chen Zhao did not say much. I'm fine, Navot said. Protect them. Chen Zhao hung up. Navot's intention was similar to Chen Zhao's. He did not take the initiative to object, nor did he take the initiative to agree. Chen Zhao took a deep breath. This seemed to be big trouble. 10 children. 10 children. What have I done? In the night, Fei Lai turned and rubbed Chen Zhao. Chen, are you asleep? No, Chen Zhao replied. Chen, if you don't want to, I won't force you. Of course not. I like children. I like our home to be more lively. Chen Zhao pulled Fei Lai into his arms. We have this condition. Plus, Little Jerlin and little Larissa can have more older brothers and sisters. I suddenly think this is a great idea. Actually, Feilai also knew that it was because she couldn't have more children. But she still wanted more children. Okay. Chen Zhao could understand Feilai. Chen Zhao didn't object. So what if they had a few more children? Anyway, it was just more effort. The next day, early in the morning, Alex glanced at the time. Anger surfaced on her face. She was furious that Chen Zhao would call her at this time. Chen, if you can't give me a satisfactory answer, I'll make you regret it. Feilai and I discussed it. We suddenly want to adopt 8 children. Wait, speak clearly. Alex suddenly became clear-headed. How many did you say? 8. Orphans. Do they have guardians? Age, background, identity. We'll talk about the details in the morning. Alex also felt a bit of a headache. Alex ran over in a hurry. She looked at Chen Zhao and Feilai, who were eating breakfast absent-mindedly. Tell me the situation. What's going on? There are 8 children. Their parents died in a fire yesterday, Chen Zhao said. Feilai and I want to adopt them. It's that simple. I need their detailed information and identification. I'll have someone send it over later, Chen Zhao said. Alex, will the adoption process be difficult? Feilai asked. Do they have any immediate family members? No. Chen Zhao shook his head. Then it shouldn't be a problem. Will someone come out to fight for custody? If there's no immediate family within the 2nd generation, the court and the Minor Protection Association will determine if there are collateral relatives within the 2nd generation, as well as if they're willing to raise the child, and if the child is willing to follow them. If any of them are unwilling, the child will be sent to an orphanage. Then what do we need to do? Nothing much. You just need to prove that you have the income, and that your family can raise the child. I'll make the proof for you. Of course, Feilai is a member of the Coastal Rescue Team, so it's even better. If you're worried about other problems, you can donate some money to a charity, preferably one for minors. Actually, in America, adopting children was a very utilitarian thing. Of course, from a normal perspective, it was a win-win situation. The orphanage would receive donations to lighten the burden. The adopter would get the child, and the child would get a family and parents. So in principle, the wealthier the adopter, the better. I'll leave this to you, Chen Zhao said. A while later, Nat Singh and Dellimore came, bringing the children's information. Alex met the 8 children and learned about their actual situation. Chen Zhao and Feilai also learned all the children's names. Chapter 1807. President will go back tomorrow. Wes called Chen Zhao. Looks like you didn't find the giant, Chen Zhao said in a mocking tone. If they found the giant, they would definitely send him a message. If they were to come back so suddenly, they must have failed. Of course, Chen Zhao didn't blame them. No one could be 100% sure that they would be able to find the legendary Nordic giants. West's reply was rather boring. President, we actually found the giant and completed the mission. Found it? And completed the mission? Chen Zhao asked in disbelief, his eyes wide. Yes, we found it. Wes was getting more and more bored. Since you found it, why are you in such a bad mood? You don't seem happy at all. You don't even seem excited. I can't be excited, Wes said. Wes said, this mission isn't difficult at all. It's much easier than besieging the Turin. Are the legendary Norse giants weak? No, the real Norse giants should be very strong. The real Norse giants? Isn't the giant the mission was referring to? It's a 2-headed giant with a bit of Norse giant blood in him. He's huge, savage, and bloodthirsty. All of us were fully prepared. But we stepped on a landmine that Klaus had prepared beforehand, and one of our legs was blown off. Chen Zhao was speechless too. One leg exploded by a landmine. Either Klaus had set some super powerful landmine, or the giant was really weak. No wonder Wes was so depressed. He'd rushed over excitedly, but he'd encountered such a thing. Aren't you still in Norway? It's very close to the North Sea. Aren't you going to search for the North Sea monster? The North Sea monster has already been captured alive. It's indeed a shockingly huge monster, over 1,000 tons. I feel like it doesn't live up to its name. Yeah, how boring. Whatever. No matter what, completing a mission is something to be happy about, Chen Zhao comforted. Did you inform Wuxia? Yes, she's an LA now. 3 missions, $200 million. In terms of investment, it wasn't a loss. In fact, it was a huge profit. Of course, this was only applicable to a capable team or individual. If it was the kind of people or teams that did not have the strength, they would probably just be throwing their lives away. Chen Zhao was still on the phone with West. Suddenly, someone tugged at his pants. Chen Zhao looked down and saw a girl tugging at his pants. Mara, what's wrong? I'm not Mara, I'm Sindora, the girl said in a trembling voice. Can I go to the beach to play? Uncle. Okay. Chen Zhao realized that he didn't remember the girl's name. To be more precise, he was confused. Xian Li, come here. Chen Zhao waved his hand. Xian Li walked up to him. Mr. Chen, what can I do for you? Since you're going to be adopted, you can call me uncle from now on. Of course, if you want to call me dad, I won't object. Chen Zhao would not force them to change their surnames and recognize a dad. Especially Xinli Sing. She was already 15 years old, going to be 16 soon. If she called him uncle, Chen Zhao would feel like he was at a disadvantage. Of course, calling him brother wasn't appropriate either. Sure, uncle, Xinli Sing replied straightforwardly. Tell me each child's name and age, Chen Zhao said. I can't remember. The one who ran to you is Sindora. She's the youngest among us, 5 years old, Xinli Sing said patiently. Then she pointed at each child and explained. Mara is that one. She's 6. She's Sindora's cousin. That one is Didala 12 female. Crow 11 male. Farintia 8 female. Penance 7 male. Badilage 7 female. Mara 6 female. Sindora 5 female. Including Xinli Sing, who was 15, there were 15 children in total. They were all from the same family. They all had the same surname. Okay, I got it. After lunch, follow me out to buy some daily necessities and clothes for you. Just then Portia came. But she suddenly realized that the entire villa was filled with children. Boss, where did you kidnap so many children? They're all my children, starting from today, Chen Zhao said. Huh. Portia wouldn't believe it. Smiling, Chen Zhao looked at Portia. I've decided to give you a raise. Really, boss? Portia was overjoyed. Of course. Chen Zhao was full of smiles. Looking at Chen Zhao's smile, Portia suddenly realized that something was wrong. Boss, they're really your children? Of course. Chen Zhao nodded. Portia finally understood why Chen Zhao wanted to raise her salary. Boss, I want to quit. Think about the money you owe me. Then you won't quit like this. Portia wanted to cry. If these children were really Chen Zhao's children, then she would undoubtedly be the one with the heaviest burden. Boss, how much will you give me? $1 is a form of encouragement for you. Let's go to the supermarket first. Chen Zhao patted Portia's shoulder. Portia wanted to cry as she drove. She hated driving an RV. She hated children. She hated her boss. The children started making a fuss in the RV. Especially the younger children. They did not have too much hatred in their hearts. Jerlin and Larissa were the happiest. They suddenly had so many friends in one night. Portia cursed Chen Zhao. But she didn't know that Chen Zhao was in even more pain. Chen Zhao realized that the 10 children piled together was like an endless hell. Thankfully, Xian Li knew how to help Chen Zhao share the burden. Moreover, she had quite a bit of prestige among the children. They finally reached the supermarket. Chen Zhao and Portia each carried Jerlin and Larissa. The other children scattered like a pack of wolves. Come back. Don't run around, Xian Li shouted. Don't make trouble for uncle. Everyone push a shopping cart, Chen Zhao said. Pick your favorite toothbrush, towel, bath towel, 2 of your favorite toys, 2 of your favorite snacks, and 3 sets of pajamas. Also, don't disappear from my sight or run around, Chen Zhao added. Chapter 1808. Children entering a supermarket is a disaster. Not only was it a disaster for his parents, it was also a disaster for the supermarket. The only thing missing from every supermarket was a sign at the entrance that said children and dogs were not allowed to enter. 10 children was almost equivalent to the end of the world. Alright, Xian Li was only half one. However, older children had their own needs. Uncle, I need some skincare products and cosmetics. The total can't exceed $1,000, Chen Zhao said. Since there were so many children, they couldn't indulge everyone. Chen Zhao was rich, but that didn't mean he could let his kids squander it. Chen Zhao could afford it, but he couldn't let them develop this habit. Since he had adopted them, he had to be responsible for their future. Even in the future, they would have a share of his assets. What Chen Zhao needed to do first was not feed their property to the dogs. If they really raised a prodigal, Chen Zhao would at most make sure they didn't starve to death. From now on, Chen Zhao had to control their spending. Not only them, but little Jerlin and little Larissa's spending also needed to be controlled. Of course, even if it was controlled, their consumption was still much higher than that of their peers from ordinary families. Portia, go to the counter over there and buy 10 cell phones. 10. Does little Larissa want one too? Yes, treat everyone equally. Adopt a child who is not related to you by blood. What was the most difficult part? It was to treat them equally. No matter how one treated their own children, they should give them the same affection and gifts. You can't just say that you don't want to buy gifts for your children. Conversely, a child's mentality is very fragile. Chen Zhao didn't want to leave a shadow in the child's mind. Of course, adopting other children would also be beneficial to little Jerlin and little Larissa. They had role models, and their brothers and sisters were their role models. After leaving the supermarket, Chen Zhao could only take the things that everyone else had bought in the supermarket. Even Portia couldn't carry them all. There were simply too many things. Boss, where are we going next? To the Baron's mansion. The whole family went to the Baron's mansion in a grandiose manner. When Zola saw that Chen Zhao had brought so many kids here, she felt a chill run down her spine. Similarly, he was startled. Zola, these are my children. I adopted them. Zola's mouth was wide open, her face full of shock. Of course, she would not say anything unpleasant in front of the children. However, she couldn't imagine what it was like to adopt so many children. Mentality. Chen Zhao was about to explode. But what could he do? Were they going to tell the kids that they had been refunded? So be it. He couldn't let the children's mentality explode, right? Today was only the first day. There was still a long way to go. Even if Fei Lai wanted a refund, Chen Zhao wouldn't agree. Do you have enough designers here? Design 3 outfits for each of them. Chen Zhao couldn't let the 3 pillars of the Baroness be responsible for so many children's clothes. If that was the case, it would be looking down on them too much. The 3 of them were on good terms with Chen Zhao, so Chen Zhao had to give them face. Zola didn't hold back and called over a dozen designers. Baroness was such a big brand. Of course, it wouldn't only have 2 or 3 kittens. Apart from the 3 pillars, there were dozens of ordinary designers, and even more designers' assistants. To Zola, dozens of outfits were less than an hour's worth of transactions. Chen Zhao also asked a designer to design 2 outfits for Portia. Chen Zhao and Zola went to the office to drink coffee. Chen, I really don't understand why you suddenly want to adopt children. It's not me. It's Fei Lai who wants more children. Then she can have them herself. She can't. There's something wrong with her body. Then little Larissa. She didn't get pregnant through normal means. Chen Zhao didn't say it clearly. Zola would fill in the blanks herself. To be honest, Zola said emotionally, I really admire your courage. After all, they had adopted 8 children and 2 of their own. That was 10 children. As someone who had been through it, Zola knew how difficult it was. It wasn't a monetary investment. Both she and Chen Zhao had enough money, not to mention raising 10 children. Even if it was 100 children, they could still afford it. What they really paid was emotional investment and handling chores. The older children were rebellious while the younger ones were dependent. Chen Zhao didn't dare to say that he could raise them all into talents. However, he was confident that he wouldn't turn them into naughty children. It was already evening when Chen Zhao returned home. Portia realized that there was no one in the house. But dinner was ready. Portia was completely speechless. As expected, this place was haunted. Fei Lai started eating as soon as she came back. A few girls surrounded Fei Lai and chatted with her. Chen Zhao brought the boy to play on the beach. Other than Chen Zhao, there were only 11-year-old Kilo and 7-year-old Binance in the house. Kilo was a bit cowardly and introverted. Binance was like a kid and was very active. Kilo, what element are you in? Uncle, I'm strength enhancing. Kilo answered with his head lowered. Chen Zhao was speechless at Kilo's magic. Usually, spiritualists with strength-enhancing spells were very outgoing. Even Chen Zhao, who was usually cheerful, was actually a hot-tempered person. However, Kilo was actually a strength-enhancing element, despite his introverted personality. Uncle, I'm elemental water type. Look at my magic. Binance showed Chen Zhao happily. Binance only knew 2 very weak water-type spells. One was Water Ball, and the other was Water Arrow. Impressive. Chen Zhao patted Binance's head. Kilo hesitated for a while, and looked up at Chen Zhao. Uncle, you're also strength-enhancing, right? Yes. Chen Zhao nodded. Then can you teach me how to become stronger? Training your body is the most important thing for you. If you want to use your power to the extreme, you must first be able to withstand it. If you can't even withstand your own power, it's useless no matter how strong your magic is. Then how can I become as strong as you, uncle? Both being strength-enhancing, the battle yesterday had left a deep impression on Kilo. He never knew that strength-enhancing spells could be so powerful. Just like I said before, keep training. I'll arrange a training schedule for you tomorrow. Perfect. I'll introduce you to a friend. King Kong come out. /35_. 9 Heavens Divine King. Chapter 1809. King Kong usually went crazy in Zhuoma National Park. He rarely came back today. The new kids hadn't even seen King Kong yet. Of course, it wasn't just King Kong. They were a family now. Then from now on, he would meet them one after another. For example, the underlings, the 3-headed dog, the Hydra, and even Amon. When Kilo and Penance saw King Kong, they were shocked at first. At first, he was shocked, but it quickly turned into a pleasant surprise. He was a child to begin with, and he was also a spiritualist. They were much braver than normal people. This gorilla is also a strength type, Chen Zhao said. You can practice with him. Kilo was still a kid, but if he used magic, his strength would increase to 3 times that of a normal person. So he wasn't afraid of King Kong at all. He was even eager to try. He wanted to see how strong the gorilla was. However, he was introverted and didn't dare to tell Chen Zhao. King Kong let little Kilo try. Chen Zhao only let Kilo try. He didn't let King Kong punch. How strong was King Kong? 30 to 40 tons of strength. If he didn't control his strength, Kilo would be gone. Kilo would be gone. As someone who'd been through this, Chen Zhao knew what 30 to 40 tons of strength meant. A human's body structure was stable and could withstand a lot of potential energy. It was about 4 times their body weight. But once the potential energy exceeded 4 times, the human body would be injured. If it exceeded 10 times, the human body would fall apart. If it exceeded 100 times, it would explode. For example, with Chen Zhao's current strength, if he didn't control it and hit a person, the person would turn into mist. Kilo walked up confidently and punched King Kong's stomach. In the end, King Kong's skin didn't even sink in, let alone injure him. After playing on the beach for a while, Chen Zhao brought Kilo and Penance back up. At night, Chen Zhao hugged Fei Lai to sleep. Fei Lai couldn't sleep. Chen, what about their studies? We can't just send them to school, right? Let them take a semester off, Chen Zhao said. Next semester, send them to school in Mountain Town. It's close to Mirror Lake, and we're familiar with Mountain Town. If anything happens, we'll know immediately and solve it. Fei Lai thought for a moment and nodded. That's good too. Chen, can you do it alone? No problem. Even if he was tired, he still had Portia and Exionly to share the burden. Chen Zhao didn't feel like he was dying. Other than the occasional mental fatigue, there were no other problems. The next day, Portia came with a tired expression. The only thing that could make up for her exhaustion was Chen Zhao's raise. Her weekly salary had been $2,500, but Chen Zhao increased it to $3,500. Her salary was indeed very high. It could even be said that she was now a high-income person. Moreover, this was the after-tax income. However, whenever Portia thought of the huge debt she owed, she felt stifled. Just for those luxuries that she had only used a few times. How could he have been so crazy back then? Chen Zhao must have drugged her. No matter what, I can't go on a shopping spree like that again. Just then his phone rang. It was Wes calling. Guild leader, We've already returned to the headquarters. Oh, did you take the plane for the whole night? Then I'll go there later. Chen Zhao planned to give them time to rest. After all, they must be very tired after taking the plane for the whole night. I'm meeting with Wang Xig at 3 in the afternoon. Okay, I'll be there before 3. After hanging up, Chen Zhao looked at Portia. Portia, help me buy an MPV. Oh, go. Now. What do you think? How much? Less than $200,000. I need a lot of space and safety. Okay. Portia was speechless at Chen Zhao's intermittent impatience. However, she was also envious of Chen Zhao's wealth. He didn't need to think much about buying a car. $200,000 was already a super luxury car. It was the same even for an MPV. Portia could roughly understand Chen Zhao's needs. Chen Zhao definitely didn't want to drive an RV every time he took a kid out. That RV was indeed too flashy. Boss, where are you going today? The company. The place last time? Yes. Chen Zhao nodded. You don't need to go. Oh, help me get a few computers and a few tablets in the afternoon. Got it, boss. Damn capitalists, Portia thought to herself. Portia's work efficiency was very high. In just 2 hours she drove the new car back. The Mercedes-Benz X. So 211 MPV had a huge interior and could seat 12 people. It also had the same anti-collision level as a school bus. All the performance parameters indicated that it was expensive. The cost plus the various fees had exceeded Chen Zhao's original limit. However, Chen Zhao didn't blame Portia. After lunch, Chen Zhao called the kids into the car. Chen Zhao planned to take them to the supernatural organization. They were spiritualists anyway, so it didn't matter if they found out about the organization's secret. The 2 SUVs were very stable. Chen Zhao had never driven such a stable car before, apart from the lowly supercars. When they arrived at the headquarters, Aduz, who was guarding the door, found it strange. He had never seen a car before, so he stopped Chen Zhao's car outside. Only when Chen Zhao rolled down the window did Aduz realize that Chen Zhao had come. After parking the car, Chen Zhao brought the kids into the headquarters. President Wes was in the hall. When he saw Chen Zhao bring the kids in, he was stunned. They are my kids. I just adopted them, Chen Zhao said. Wes was surprised, but he didn't ask. You can move around freely, but don't go to places with obvious danger signs. The headquarters wasn't very big, but there were still some dangerous areas. For example, dungeons, evil spirit dens, or places where demons slept. These places were all dangerous. Of course, there was also Chen Zhao's electric shock lab. It was also the most dangerous place. Tell me, what happened in the Norwegian forest this time? Wes didn't hide anything. Then he began to talk about their encounter. No, they hadn't encountered any dangerous battles at all. When Chen Zhao heard that the giants would appear in lightning, he couldn't help but be surprised. /35_9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1810. It's some kind of image, West said. It should be a remnant from the past. It witnesses the true giant's existence at a certain time, but it only appears at the moment of lightning. Chen Zhao and West stood by the window and watched the children running outside. To these children, everything here was very novel. Of course, they were spiritualists, so they didn't find it unacceptable. Just then a sports car drove in. Wang Xig was here. Chen Zhao and West walked out of the headquarters to welcome her. Ms. Wang. Mr. Chen, hello. Mr. West, hello. West handed a heroic spirit notebook to Wang Xig. Ms. Wang, this is the Scarlet Mission, the Nordic Giants battle record. Thank you. Wang Xig was very satisfied. She didn't care about the difficulty of the mission. She only needed the results. The supernatural organization didn't disappoint her. Which one will you choose for the second Scarlet Mission? Wang Xig asked. I'm still considering, Chen Zhao said perfunctorily. The first 3 missions were the Rock of Slaughter, the Nordic Giant, and the North Sea Monster. Now the Rock of Slaughter mission was completely useless, and the North Sea Monster had been taken. They'd only completed the Nordic Giant mission, so they had to choose the remaining 2 missions again. But to Wang Xig, completing 1 Scarlet mission in 2 months was already very satisfying. She could answer to the Hunters Guild. At the same time, her teacher would have an explanation. Of course, this also made her more confident in the supernatural organization. By the way, does the Hunters Guild accept intelligence missions? Chen Zhao asked. Intelligence? We don't accept such missions, but I can ask someone for you, Wang Xig said readily. As an organization that had existed for 200 or 300 years, they obviously had their own intelligence network. It wasn't just limited to North America, but the entire world. This was something the supernatural organization couldn't even catch up to. The supernatural organization was very powerful. But like most supernatural organizations, they rose quickly. But it was hard to say if they could last for 2 generations. Building a complete intelligence organization wasn't something the supernatural organization could afford right now. Most of the information that the supernatural organization could get now was from Los Angeles. The ability to obtain information beyond this range was very weak. The information he had was obtained from other people or organizations. Otherwise, they would have to spend money to buy it. Basically, they could only get second-hand or even third-hand information. Of course, in most cases, these sources of information were basically enough. After all, the supernatural organization was a regional organization, nor did he have any thoughts of maintaining world peace. Furthermore, the investment required to establish a complete intelligence department was simply too great. This wasn't something that could be done with a few $100,000 or even a few $1 million. Think about it. The American government invests billions of dollars every year in order to gather intelligence from all over the world. In the past few decades, hundreds of billions of dollars have been spent to maintain this intelligence system. From this point alone, it should be known that intelligence was not something that ordinary people could play with. Mr. Chen, what information do you want? All the information about the Roma Akuk family. Wang Xig looked surprised. What? Do you know the Roma Akuk family? How could I not know? Wang Xig smiled bitterly. In the past year, there's only one person left in the Akuk family. You can say that he caused a huge commotion in the entire spiritual world. Only one person left. Chen Zhao couldn't help but be confused. He looked at Wang Xig. There's only one person left in the Akuk family? Yes, Warren Akuk. He's ranked 8th on the top 10 wanted criminals in the spiritual world. Wang Xig said with a bitter smile. In the past year, he killed more than 300 people. Most of them were spiritualists and they were all Roma. The whole world is after him now. Wang Xig looked at Chen Zhao. Mr. Chen, do you have a grudge against him? I guess we're mortal enemies now, Chen Zhao said with a shrug. Wang Xig looked at Chen Zhao in confusion. Chen Zhao's tone was rather relaxed. There was no hatred or anger on his face either. However, he said it as if it was only natural. I'll do my best to help you investigate this Warren Akuk, Wang Xig said. West had guessed a little. The children Chen Zhao had brought were clearly Roma. Warren Akuk also had a huge grudge against the Roma. So the children's relatives must have been killed by Warren Akuk. So Chen Zhao would naturally bear this grudge. Xian Li Sing suddenly regretted letting Chen Zhao and Fei Lai adopt her. Little Jerlin and little Larissa were 2 complete little devils. Especially little Larissa, who was the youngest. Sis. Little Larissa tugged at Xian Li Sing's hair. Jerlin, on the other hand, was running around in the headquarters. Just then a girl about her age came over. Risa walked over with her hands in her pockets, studying Xian Li Sing up and down. You're the president's adopted daughter? Risa's tone was somewhat provocative. Xian Li Sing looked at Risa. You are? I'm the president's subordinate, Risa said, extending her hand. Let's get to know each other. I'm Risa. Xian Li had just extended her hand when she suddenly felt a chill. Her arm was almost frozen. Xian Li Sing hurriedly stepped back. What are you doing? Risa snickered. Nothing. I just want to tell you that you're very weak. Xian Li Sing stared at Risa angrily. Are you going to fight me? Risa lifted her right arm and pointed to the left. Suddenly, a powerful current shot out from her palm. A hole appeared in a tree with a diameter of 70 to 80 centimeters a dozen meters away. Xian Li Sing was shocked. The girl seemed to be 1 or 2 years younger than her. But her magic was so powerful. Suddenly, Risa felt a chill behind her. Looking back, She realized that Chen Zhao was already standing behind her. Hi, President. Are you bullying Xian Li? No way. Risa hurriedly waved her hands. I'm just showing her my magic. Chen Zhao looked up at Xian Li Sing. Xian Li hesitated for a moment, and then shook her head. No, she didn't bully me. She was a proud person. She didn't need someone to back her up right now. /35_ Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 1811. On a small island in the Atlantic Ocean. The people of this island lived a secluded life. But now, this island was engulfed in flames under the night sky. Death spread amidst the blood and flames. The Edith residential district had completely fallen. The Edith family was the most populous family among the Roma people. Inside the raging flames, Warren Akuk stood in the middle with both arms raised, chanting an incantation that was hard to understand. In front of Walloon was a corpse. The chest of the corpse was embedded with several pillar-shaped crystals. As he chanted the last part of the incantation, a mass of black smoke spread out from the flames around him. Then, the black smoke surged into the corpse in front of Warren. The crystals on the corpse's chest became darker and darker, finally turning completely black. Southern Pillar King, welcome back to the world. The corpse moved a bit. The fatal wounds on its body also quickly healed. He stood up. Warren knelt on one knee. Southern Pillar King, sir. I am Warren Akuk, your humble servant. The Southern Pillar King was admiring his own body, ignoring Warren's actions. Akuk, you are the descendant of the Middle King? Yes, Southern Pillar King, sir. 5 kings, how many have you awakened? The Southern Pillar King asked. You are the third, Walloon said respectfully. Oh, who are the first 2? The Southern Pillar King looked at Warren and asked. It's me. Within the flickering flames, 2 figures slowly walked over, a man and a woman. The woman had a head of red hair, and a slender body. There was a faint smile at the corner of her mouth. Her attire was extremely simple, just a loose shirt paired with a pair of tight jeans, and a pair of sunglasses hanging in front of her chest. She looked like an ordinary fashionable beauty. The other person had his hands behind his back, looking rather old with a head full of silver hair. He was half a body length shorter than the woman next to him. His gaze was dim and lifeless, as if he was an old man with one foot in the grave. Shan, Bayan. The Southern Pillar King's eyes glowed. The red-haired woman was the Eastern Endless Pillar King Shan. The other old man was the Northern Shadow Pillar King Bayan. Zoran, I trust you have been well since we last met. Shan's face was as beautiful as a peach blossom. Byron nodded slightly towards Zoran and greeted him coldly. Walloon stood aside obediently. He was facing the legendary creator of the Roma, 3 of the 5 great gods. At the same time, they were also the ancestors of the 5 great Roma families, Akuk, Singus, Edith, Vaiku and Pomies. What are your requirements for waking me up? Zoran asked. Byron and Shan also looked at Warren. They also didn't know what Warren's goal was. Fight for him? Every single one of them possessed unparalleled magical power. Moreover, they did not coexist harmoniously. If 3 of them were summoned, it was very likely that they would fight amongst themselves. Instead, its functions were weakened. Walloon lowered his head humbly and looked at the 3D Pillar King calmly. 3 Pillar Kings, the current Roma people have already forgotten their traditions, your greatness, and our glory. Therefore, this lowly servant has no other requirements. Please restore the glory of the Roma people, Walloon said respectfully. I don't know what tradition or glory. Just tell me your requirements. Power, wealth, or women? Please awaken our king, the great Pillar King Quemelas, Walloon said. Do you know what needs to be done to awaken the great Pillar King Quemelas? Zoran looked at Walloon with a serious expression. Yes, I do. Walloon nodded. Warren nodded. We need the 4 Pillar Monarchs to appear. At the same time, we need the 4 of you to work together. Without your cooperation, we won't be able to awaken the great Pillar Monarch, His Majesty Quemelas. At the same time, I need a vessel. Shan stared at Walloon. Has your Akuk family's vessel been prepared? Yes, I am that vessel. Warren opened his shirt, and the 3 Pillar Kings saw that Warren's chest was pierced by a few crystals. The 3 Pillar Kings frowned. Shan said, You should know that as a vessel, your consciousness will be erased. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm the only one left in the Akuk family, and for the sake of my family's unfulfilled wish, I have no regrets. All right, you are our awakener. We will fulfill one of your wishes before the vessel is destroyed. This is a fair trade. We have no other choice, Zoran said. However, you still have to awaken the Western Pillar King, Erawan. I've already made the preparations. I've also scouted out the Vrykul family's residential area. Zoran looked around. He was currently in a strange mood, because the Edith family was his kin, his descendants. But now they had to die to awaken him. But he was awakened by the slayer of his kin. But even he couldn't go against Walloon who awakened him. Walloon could ask him to do anything at all. Of course, there was only one thing. The Romani people were all about fair trade. Even he couldn't go against the principle of trade. If there was anyone who could go against the principle of trade, it would be the great Pillar King Quemelas. Because he was the one who made the rules of trade. The great Pillar King Quemelas was also their master. The 4 Pillar Kings were Quemelas's 4 vice-kings. According to the legends, they created the world, and were the creators of the world. In reality, they didn't create anything. They weren't even the first generation of Roma people. However, there were no more Roma who were stronger than them before or after them. They used their power to rule over the Roma people, and each created 5 major Roma clans, all of which survive to this day. Naturally, Walloon didn't kill all the clans of the 3 Pillar Kings. The ones he killed were the blood relatives of the 3 clans, the awakened ones. There were even more Roma people who hadn't awakened, who didn't live in the residential area. Walloon left with the 3 Pillar Kings. At that moment, Shan walked up to Walloon. Her slender figure was even taller than Shan. She leaned down and whispered into Walloon's ear. Walloon, what is your real plan? Won't you tell me? Shan's tone was filled with temptation. Walloon calmly looked at Shan. Great Eastern Pillar King, my goal has been revealed. I didn't hide anything. I want to resurrect the great Pillar King Quemelas. Hehe, don't lie to me. I can see the ambition in your eyes, Shan said with a smile. My ambition is to bring back the glory of the Roma people. Is that true? Of course, Walloon nodded and said with a serious tone. Then do you dare to let me conduct a soul interrogation on you? Yes. As long as my ancestor's dream is fulfilled, I am willing to hand over my soul to Great Eastern Pillar King. Chapter 1812. Daily Moore noticed that Nawat Singh's face had turned extremely ugly after the call. Knots, what happened? That Warren, that damn Warren. He slaughtered another family's settlement, the Pomies family, Knots said. Nawat said. And they also stole the Pomies family's divine artifact. Warren attacked you and the Singer family's settlement, and stole the earring called Mend. Now he attacked the Pomies family, and stole their divine gear. Does that mean that Warren's targets are the families that possess divine gear? Daily Moore asked. That's right. What other families have artifacts? Daily Moore asked. The Edith family and the Vrykul family, Knots said. Do you know where they live? Daily Moore asked. I know the Edith family. They live on an island in the Atlantic. I know them and have been to their settlement before, Knots said. But I don't know anyone from the Vrykul family. They also live in seclusion, and rarely have contact with the outside world. There is also the Cook family where Warren is from. But since Warren is from the Cook family, then the artifact of the Cook family must have fallen into his hands. What's the origin of these artifacts? What's their use? Actually, the 5 artifacts were made by the Cook family. What? The 5 artifacts belong to the Cook family? No, they're just contractors, Knots said. Actually, the materials needed for the 5 divine artifacts were shared by the 5 families. So when the divine artifacts were created, each family received one. Nawat Singh said. Knots paused and said, the origin of the 5 artifacts is very ancient, more than 2,000 years old. After the 5 Pillar Kings disappeared, the Roma lost their protection. At that time, the Roma had their own religion, so they wouldn't believe in other religions. So they were naturally regarded as heretics. Then they were constantly hunted and slaughtered. In order to stabilize the people, after a discussion, the 5 families jointly made 5 artifacts to protect the entire race. The 5 artifacts are Mend, Guidance, Fearless, Holy Spirit, and Order. So what are the specific uses of these 5 artifacts? Daily Moore asked. In my hands, Mend was used to extend the duration of continuous magic, Knots said. The more powerful the person using Mend, the more powerful the effect. The artifact of the Edith family is Fearless, which can be immune to all curses and mind magic. Of course, this is what I know. I don't know the effects of Guidance, Holy Spirit, and Order. I only know that Guidance is in the hands of the Pomies family, Holy Spirit is in the hands of the Vrykul family, and Order is in the hands of the Cook family. So Warren's current goal is the artifacts in the hands of the Edith family and the Vrykul family? Navots nodded. But he felt something was wrong. The ancestor of Mend had taken away from his hands. But Warren still attacked the settlement of the Singh family. If it was just for the artifacts of the families, he didn't seem to need to do so. Don't you know the people of the Edith family? Inform them now. At least let them be prepared, so that the Edith family is not defenseless. Yes. Knots nodded, and immediately called the friend of the Edith family. Hello Knots, what's up? Do you know about the Pomies family? Pomies family? What happened to their family? Pomies asked in confusion. The Pomies family's settlement was slaughtered by the madman of the Cook family. Not only the Pomies family, but even the Singh family's settlement was slaughtered. I was also attacked, and Mend was taken away by him. What? When did that happen? Edith was shocked. Just a few days ago. Navots said solemnly. You better send a message to your family. Walloon's target is likely the divine artifact of the 5 families. His next target is likely to be your Edith family, or Vrykul family. I understand. I'll call the family right now. Edith hung up, and called the family leader. But after waiting for a long time, the call didn't go through. The phone kept dialing. Edith's heart became heavy. She changed to another family member's number. But the call still didn't go through. She changed to another one. But the result was still the same. No one answered. This made Edith have a bad premonition. Edith suddenly realized that there was a piece of news on TV. The news that was being broadcasted was about Edith Island. When the International Ocean Research ship passed by the Edith Island, they found that the island was on fire. So they landed on the island. They found that the residents of the island were slaughtered. No one survived. Strange symbols were left at the scene, like some kind of cult symbol or ritual. Edith sat on the ground. Her whole body seemed to be drained of energy. Warren! Warren! Edith roared. Not Singh's report was too late. The Edith family had already been attacked and destroyed. It was different from Not Singh. Nawat Singh had no relatives in the Singh family settlement. At least, there were no close relatives. But Edith still had a lot of family on the island. His father, his brother, his grandmother, and his grandfather. At this moment, Nawat Singh called again. Did you see the news on the TV? Why did you only inform me now? Why didn't you inform me earlier? Edith roared uncontrollably. Not Singh was silent. This was indeed her dereliction of duty. She hadn't thought of Warren's plan beforehand. She only thought of this possibility when the Pomies family suffered the same fate. Do you know where the Vrykul family settlement is? Warren's target is probably the Vrykul family. Edith was silent for a moment. Then he said, in Minneapolis. Suddenly, Edith remembered. I'm going to kill Warren. I'm going to kill him. Chapter 1813. Shinli, hurry up and help. Don't play with your phone, Portia shrieked. Boss, they're your kids. You should take responsibility. What could Chen Zhao do? He had 2 big demons, little Jerlin and little Larissa, in his arms. 4 dog leashes hung on his body. He was holding Sindora, Mara, Coilage, and Binance. Apart from little Jerlin and little Larissa, the 4 of them were the youngest of the 4. Other than Binance, the other 3 were all girls. But their mischievous personalities were no less than boys. Chen Zhao's expression was lifeless. Xianli held her phone and looked left and right in the airport. Uncle over there. Xianli had already seen Nawat Singh's figure. Don't run anymore, or I'll get angry, Portia shouted. Sister Navots, we're here, Shinli shouted, raising her hands. Not Singh and Edith also saw them. Narrowed her eyes and looked at Chen Zhao's group. Portia was clearly an ordinary person. Chen Zhao had an unusual aura, but it was too weak. It didn't feel very strong. Also, what's with the kids? The person actually had 2 kids in his arms. Is he a babysitter? Why did he bring the kids here? Chen, you're here? Navots walked up to Chen Zhao. Why did you bring the kids? I had no choice. There's no one at home to take care of them, so I could only bring them. Chen Zhao shrugged. They shouldn't come, Navots said. There's no shouldn't. Chen Zhao put little Larissa into Navots' arms. Do me a favor. Navots looked at the time bomb in her arms, her expression very awkward. Change little Larissa's diaper. Huh? Me? I don't know how. Learn. You'll need it in the future. Chen Zhao glanced at Aim beside him. Are you Navots' boyfriend? No, I'm Aim Edith from the Edith family. On the surface, Aim Edith was still polite, but when he looked at Navots Singh from the corner of his eyes, he was already furious. What kind of people were they? Is this the helper Navots Singh found? She couldn't have pulled it from the streets, could she? Boss, I want a raise. Otherwise I'll quit. Portia complained. If you talk about a raise again, I'll deduct your salary. Chen Zhao pulled little Glinsaporia into his arms. Uncle, I want to drink Coke. Looking at Chen Zhao, Binance tugged at Chen Zhao's shirt. Chen Zhao searched around and found a credit card. Do you know how to use it? Binance shook his head. Chen Zhao searched again. He didn't seem to have any cash on him. Portia, do you have any cash? No. Then go buy a few cans of Coke. Boss, you're empty-handed now. You want me to buy it? Boss, you're empty-handed. Do you pay my salary or do I pay yours? Portia's cheeks twitched. I'll go. Looking at Chen Zhao, Ames whispered to Navots Singh. I want to kill him. Can I? Air. Navots rubbed his forehead. I want to kill him too. The plane arrived. Everyone finally boarded successfully. Target, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Although Minneapolis wasn't well known, it was considered a big city in the United States. It had a population of 400,000 and a GDP of $200 billion. However, the kids were still making noise after boarding the plane. Chen Zhao really had a headache. Apart from Xinli Singh, he cast Banshee's charm on all the other kids. At some point, the entire cabin quieted down. Boss, you know hypnosis? Portia looked at Chen Zhao in surprise. Chen Zhao walked to the kids and snapped his fingers. Then they all fell asleep. I'm a doctor, Chen Zhao said matter-of-factly. Edith had been paying attention to Chen Zhao. When he saw Chen Zhao use Banshee's charm, he couldn't help but frown. Is he a spiritual spiritualist? Spiritual spiritualists had always been criticized for their combat abilities. Their spells were quite effective against normal people. But against people with stronger wills, the effect would start to weaken. Against spiritualists, the effect would be even worse. The stronger the spiritualist's magic was, the worse the effect would be. As long as one had 1/3 of the spellcaster's magic, the spiritualist's spells would have a hard time being effective. Of course, it wasn't completely useless. It could only be said that hypnosis spells would be much less effective. On the other hand, some mental stimulation and mental curses were still effective. For example, mental whip could disturb the enemy in battle. They arrived at the Minneapolis International Airport. Everyone was carrying 2 children, even Xinli Singh. The kids were too sleepy. They went to the hotel first. Everyone was a bit tired. Ames didn't seem to be in a hurry to go to the Vreichel family's residence. Ames, where's the Vreichel family's residence? Ames glanced at Chen Zhao. After some hesitation he said, St. Anthony Waterfall. Aren't we going today? No, we can't today, Ames said. Edith said. The Vreichel family hid their settlement in the waterfall and cast magic. There are only 2 ways to find the entrance. One is to open it from the inside. And the other is that the entrance only opens once on the 15th night of every month. And it only opens for an hour. Is there a difference between opening it every day and once a month? Chen Zhao pursed his lips. If it really attracts enemies, they won't be 1 or 2 days late. They sealed the entrance, but that doesn't mean they can't receive information from the outside, Ames said. The Vreichel family's people in the residence must know that Warren is going to harm them, so they'll definitely be prepared. They'll also look for reinforcements. Warren will also return in failure this time. Whatever, Navots Singh said. Tomorrow is the 15th. In the Vrykul residence, a figure swayed at the exit. Maggie, what are you doing at the exit? Maggie Vrykul turned to look at the person behind her. Geraldine, why are you here? Geraldine Vrykul and Maggie Vrykul stared at each other in silence. Suddenly, Maggie Vrykul raised an eyebrow. You're with him too? /35_. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1814. Not long after, Maggie Vrykul and Geraldine Vrykul stood in front of a stone array, formed by dozens of stone pillars. Maggie Vrykul glanced at Geraldine Vrykul. I didn't expect you to be Warren's man. You too. I didn't expect it either, Geraldine Vrykul said indifferently. Maggie Vrykul was the daughter of the patriarch, but she betrayed the Vrykul group. Because he can fulfill everyone's wish, Maggie Vrykul said matter-of-factly. What wish did you make to him? Geraldine Vrykul didn't speak. She looked at the stone array and asked, how do I remove the space displacement? You can't remove the space displacement. Otherwise, this place will be directly connected to the outside world and exposed to the public. By then, even Warren won't be able to do anything, Maggie Vrykul said. If you don't remove the space displacement, then what do? It's very simple. Move that stone pillar to that position, then move that stone pillar to this side. That's strange. This isn't a Western magic array, right? This is China's feng shui. Guide the wind, Maggie Vrykul said. Orion as the chess piece, Big Dipper as the general dragon mountain, Ziwei as the command. What are you muttering? Don't interrupt me. Do as I say. Move that stone here. This is to change the array, so that one can only enter but not leave. Geraldine Vrykul silently followed Maggie Vrykul's instructions. At this moment, a hole appeared at the other end of the stone array. You can come in, Mr. Warren, Maggie Vrykul said with her phone in her hand. From the hole, a few figures appeared. Warren, Zoran, Sean and Bayan walked in from outside the hole. Sean looked at the stone array in front of him and said in surprise, it's amazing. There was no such magic array in the past. What system of magic is this? Sir Sean, this is an Eastern magic array. It's a completely different system from Western magic, Warren said. At this moment, Maggie Vrykul and Geraldine Vrykul walked over. Mr. Warren, I've done what I asked. Now it's time to keep my promise, Maggie Vrykul said. Killing your father, that's all? Warren asked. Yes. Sure. Warren nodded. This was not a difficult task, and he had originally intended to do so. Where is it? It's in his hands too. Geraldine Vick was a little surprised. Maggie Vicker's wish was to kill the chief. He was her father. He didn't understand what kind of grudge the father and daughter had. So much so that Maggie Vick would rather collude with outsiders. Even if it meant risking the annihilation of his entire clan, he wanted his father to die. Geraldine, what is your wish? Warren asked. Of course, the trade had to be fair. Warren also had to abide by the rules of the trade. He really wanted to learn from the villains in the movies. After achieving his goal, he directly killed the person. But he couldn't do that. Of course, he couldn't accept anything that Warren couldn't do. Revive my sister. Warren closed his eyes and thought for a while. I can't do it. You just can't do it now, Geraldine Vick said. Warren frowned slightly. He seemed to know something. Even if I succeed, I can't do it, Warren said. No one can revive the dead. You just need to summon my sister's soul back after the plan is completed, Geraldine Vick said. Where did your sister's soul go? Hell. How did she die? She didn't die. I have kept her body intact. She violated the clan rules, so her soul was sent to hell. I see. Warren nodded. If his plan really succeeded, then he could indeed summon his sister's soul out of hell. The premise was that his sister's soul was still intact. Are they your men? Maggie Vicker asked. No, they are God, the great pillar king of our Roma people, Warren said indifferently. Geraldine Vick looked at Sean, Byron and Zoran. His eyes flickered. He kept staring at the three, as if he wanted to use all his strength to pierce through them. If there was anyone in this world who could know Warren's plan, it was him. Geraldine Vrykul even guessed the details of Walloon's plan. Are they the legendary Pillar King? Maggie Vrykul looked at Walloon as if he was a lunatic. Pillar King? Let's not talk about whether the legend was true. Even if the Pillar King really existed, it was more than 2,000 years ago. Majivik didn't believe that the legendary Pillar King would really appear. 3 sirs, you can start. Warren looked at the 3 Pillar Kings. Sorry for troubling you. At this moment, the Vickers family's residential area was silent. The silence was frightening. There wasn't even a sound of insects. Let me do it. At this moment, Shane walked out with a ball of string in her hand. Sean suddenly threw the ball of string out. The ball of string flew into the air, and the end of the string suddenly shot into the darkness. Sean took out the same ball of string and repeated the same trick. Then, Sean took out the third, the fifth. These strings traveled in the darkness and rushed into the residential area in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, the rope that had been released from a small ball of string had wrapped itself tightly around the house. In the end, Sean gave it a tug. The entire house and the owner inside were instantly killed. At the same time, the entire residential area suddenly sounded an alarm. Not good, someone entered here. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The Vickers in the residential area were instantly like ants on a hot pan. The 5 balls of string that Sean threw were obviously not ordinary strings. Each ball of string had a different color. The red string was burning with flames. The silver-white string was like frost. The white string was electrified. The black string was poisonous. All the strings crisscrossed and covered the entire residential area. These crisscross strings were more like a nest, whether it was an adult or a child, whether it was a man or a woman. But in front of Sean, he seemed so weak and fragile. Sean was the first to be awakened, but it was the first time Warren saw Sean in action. It wasn't shocking, and it wasn't colorful either. But Sean's magic was filled with endless killing intent. What kind of magic is this? Geraldine asked, puzzled. It's a familiar. Sir Sean isn't awakened, Warren said. Among the 5 Pillar Kings, 3 were magic awakened and 2 were bloodline awakened. Sean's magic was purely to control objects. Chapter 18:15. Sean, you're too slow. Bayan walked out. His movements were slow as if he was an old man past his prime. But with every step he took, his appearance became younger. With every step he took, his body grew bigger. When he reached Sean's side, he had changed a lot. He was no longer a decaying old man, but a strong young man. Bayan's body emitted a strong aura as his palms began to accumulate and compress magic. Everyone was shocked when they saw Bayan's movement. Everyone felt like they were facing a walking nuclear bomb. Bayan's movement was very similar to the Kamehameha in the manga. Haha! Bayan's palms suddenly pushed forward. Just like the Kamehameha, a white light retreated from Bayan's palms. Rumble! The entire residential area was razed to the ground, leaving a shocking crater in the center of the residential area. It was as if it was hit by a missile. Maji Vickers and Geraldine Vickers, who were standing at the back, almost lost their balance. Their faces were filled with horror and disbelief. Whether it was Sean or Byron, both of them were so terrifying and unbelievable. Sean alone could slaughter the entire Vickers family's residential area. After all, there were more than 300 people here. Every single one of them, regardless of gender or age, was a spiritualist. But when faced with Sean, they were helpless. Bayan was even more terrifying. Just one move, and he razed this place to the ground. Bayan, using magic like this will only shorten your existence, Zoran said. It doesn't matter. This awakening isn't in my plan anyway. Bayan's body gradually shrunk and returned to his old man appearance. Warren glanced at Bayan from the corner of his eyes and walked into the ruins. Just then, a figure rushed out from the ruins. Maji Vickers' father, Wilson Vickers. Wilson Vickers' body was covered in a thin layer of light. The light was like a burning flame. I'm going to kill you, Wilson Vickers roared. Warren didn't seem surprised when he saw Wilson Vickers. Titan's power. Warren took a deep breath, and his body instantly became powerful. Warren punched Wilson Vickers in the face. Wilson Vickers was thrown several meters away, but he stood up unscathed. Viper's whip. Warren's arm suddenly stretched out like a long whip, lashing heavily on Wilson Vickers' body. The halo on Wilson Vickers' body was almost shattered, but it soon stabilized. Teeth of the hungry wolf. Warren launched another attack before Wilson Vicker could react. A pair of fang-like spikes suddenly shot out from Wilson Vrika's back. Ah! Wilson Vrika screamed. However, this wasn't the end for him. Warren's next round of attacks had already arrived. Bind of Thorns. A thorny vine drilled out from the ground under Wilson Vrika's feet and bound him tightly. Wilson Vicker was already panicking. Walloon's attacks were too sharp, and it felt like he knew every move Kieran was about to make. All the attacks were aimed at his weak points, and they were a step ahead of him. He didn't even have the strength to fight back. Wilson Vicker wanted to struggle, but his body was fixed by the thorny vine, so he couldn't activate his magic. Warren walked in front of Wilson Vicker. Warren still had a faint smile on his face, and at the same time, he took off the ring on Wilson Vicker's finger. Is this the Holy Spirit? Give it back to me, you bastard! Wilson Vicker roared angrily. However, Warren didn't seem to hear Wilson Vicker's roar. He wore the Holy Spirit ring on his finger. He felt the power bestowed by the Holy Spirit ring. Mr. Wilson, you've let the Holy Spirit ring be covered in dust. You don't even know how to use the Holy Spirit ring. All of you are the same. You've tarnished the name of Ancestor Cook's gift, Warren said as a matter of fact. Now, I will take back what belongs to our family. This is our Vicker family's, not yours. Wilson Vicker roared angrily. Warren glanced behind Wilson Vicker. He's yours. Wilson Vicker was tied up at this moment. He couldn't see behind him. However, he vaguely sensed something. Maggie, it's you? You damned little bastard. Poochie! Wilson Vicker lowered his head and looked at his pierced chest. His mouth started to vomit blood. Maggie, you dare? Yes, I dare. Maggie Vicker pulled out the weapon in her hand and stabbed it again. Wilson Vicker struggled several times before he finally breathed his last. Miss Maggie, please don't damage your father's body. Warren looked at Maggie Vicker with a smile. Now their deal was completely completed. Maggie Vicker would also be completely loyal to him. Yes, Mr. Warren. Maggie Vicker pulled out her sword and silently retreated to the side. At this moment, Geraldine Vicker, Sean, Byron and Zoran walked over. Geraldine Vicker looked at Warren. Warren was laying Wilson Vicker's body on the ground. Then, he stabbed a crystal into Wilson Vicker's chest. Did you make that soul device? Geraldine Vicker asked. Warren glanced at Geraldine Vicker. You also know alchemy magic? Geraldine Vicker continued. It looks like the product of the combination of Eastern refining and Egyptian soul binding. Warren began to prepare the magic circle, and then placed the body in the center of the magic circle. It was the same process as waking up Zoran. Under Warren's magic spell, Wilson Vicker's body suddenly opened its eyes. Maggie Vicker was shocked and immediately pulled out her weapon. Put away your weapon. He's not your father. He's your ancestor now. Erewhon, long time no see. Sean took the lead to greet Western Pillar King, Erewhon Vicker. Erewhon looked at his body. It was the same as when Zoran woke up. He was familiarizing himself with his body. Which one of you woke me up? It's the kid from the Cook family. Erewhon looked at Warren with his bull head. Tell me your purpose. I need you to wake up my ancestor, Great Pillar King Quemelas, Warren said. Erewhon glanced at the other 3 Pillar Kings. He couldn't tell if he was happy or angry. Seems like you're mentally prepared. Yes, I'm ready. Warren nodded. Then let's do it here. /35_. 9 Heavens God King. Chapter 18:16. Warren wore 5 artifacts. Heal, Fearless, Guidance, Order, and Holy Spirit. These 5 artifacts were an earring, a pendant, a bracelet, a mask, and a ring. Sean, Bayan, Zoran, and Erewhon stood in 4 different directions. The magic needed to summon the soul of the Great Pillar King was far beyond what ordinary people could bear. Only when the other 4 Pillar Kings joined forces would they have enough magic to summon the Great Pillar King. The magic of the 4 Pillar Kings was surging. Each of them had a magic that could make people 100 times stronger. Geraldine, what are they doing? Resurrecting our god of creation, Great Pillar King Quemelas, said Geraldine Vrikal. Resurrection? Maji Vrikal looked at Geraldine Vrikal in confusion. Yes, resurrection. But why can he still be resurrected after more than 2,000 years? Is it because the soul of God can't be destroyed? Maji Vrykul was puzzled. Let's not talk about whether Quemeles is a god or not. Even if he really is a god, I'm afraid his soul will be destroyed in 2,000 years. Then why? Do you know why Quemeles is called the god of creation? I don't understand. Because he really created a world. To be precise, it's a small world. A world that belongs only to him. His plan was perfect, but he overestimated his faith. There were very few souls that were truly qualified to be taken into heaven, causing the heaven he created to be unable to be maintained. Quemeles also died to maintain this heaven. After his death, his soul entered this heaven, but he completely closed the heaven he created, and finally completely sealed his soul in this heaven. Geraldine Vrykul paused and said, "Now they are summoning Quemeles' soul from heaven, and then using Warren's body as the host, temporarily resurrecting Quemeles. Host. As the host, his soul and consciousness should also be erased, right?" Geraldine Vrykul nodded. "That's right. So the object of my allegiance soon became Quemeles? Hee. Geraldine Vrykul smiled and did not answer. "How do you know all this?" Maji Vikar asked in confusion. "These are secrets, and I happen to be the next patriarch's successor," said Geraldine Vrykul. Maji Vikar looked at Geraldine Vikar in surprise. As the daughter of the current patriarch, Maji Vikar knew a lot of things. For example, Geraldine Vik's matter. In order to resurrect his sister, Geraldine Vrykul had been studying alchemy and necromancy. There were also many other systems of magic. As long as it could be of use, he would study it. Of course, research and learning were two different things. However, this also made Geraldine Vrykul the most outstanding and knowledgeable person among the younger generation. Among his peers, no one could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Many people in the Vrykul family liked to do research, no matter what aspect it was. The Roma once said of the Vrykul family, a family full of evil and order. In order to carry out all kinds of research, the Vrykul family often had no bottom line. Many taboo research was never taboo in their eyes. Then why did you say it now? Is it still necessary to keep it a secret now? Geraldine Vrykul smiled. The Vrykul family has been destroyed. Both of us are now just stray dogs. What about your sister? Her soul. Her soul entered the heaven created by Quemeles. She is a firm believer of Quemeles. Geraldine Vrykul said. So, as long as Quemeles is resurrected, then he naturally has the ability to bring my sister's soul out. No wonder. Maji Vrykul looked at the center of the field. Those four people are really the four Pillar Kings? Yes, at least their souls are the four Pillar Kings. Geraldine Vrykul nodded. Their souls are also in heaven. How did your sister die? Maji Vrykul asked. If you don't want to say, I won't force you. In order to pursue the secret of Quemeles, Geraldine Vrykul said. She is a more fanatical researcher than me. Maji Vrykul could understand this. Most people in the Vrykul family were like this. They would do anything to do research. The reason why Maji Vrykul hated her father. It was because her father had done inhumane, forbidden experiments on her mother. The four Pillar Kings emitted shocking magic power. This was just the magic power that was dissipated. The amount of magic they consumed was even more shocking. The amount of magic they released in an instant was almost equivalent to all the magic a normal person could release at once. However, their magic recovery speed was also shocking. Even so, their magic power still couldn't keep up with the speed of consumption. Wah! Little Larissa suddenly burst into tears. Ha! Chen Zhao suddenly opened his eyes. Chen Zhao immediately stood up and comforted little Larissa. In that instant, Chen Zhao felt an aura permeating the air. Surging powerful, Chen Zhao looked at the time. It was only 1 a.m. He carried the crying little Larissa out of the room. Just then Nawat Singh, who lived in the next room, walked out. Then Edith also walked out of the room opposite. The three glanced at each other. Edith's expression was solemn. Scary, too scary. What was with that magic power? Perhaps all the spiritualists in the city had sensed that terrifying magic power. At this moment, the children in the other rooms were also awakened and ran out of their rooms. They were also awakened by the scary magic power. Uncle, what is that? It's too scary. Xinli Sing stared at Chen Zhao in fear. There seems to be something incredible, Chen Zhao said calmly. Something incredible has appeared. Where did it come from? The aura came from the northeast, Chen Zhao said. Northeast? That's where St. Anthony Waterfall is. Edith said seriously. Is it the Reichel family's residence? Let's go there and take a look, Chen Zhao said. Go there? Now. Something must have happened to the Reichel family. I just don't know if it's Warren's doing. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.